Hi, Kit.
Hello, how are you, Jim?
Good. How are you?
Okay. Jim,
Yes.
I didn't have to put in any password or anything. It came right in.
Yeah. No, that's fine. People will be let in, and then we'll monitor who's in, and then the
Oh,
appropriate people would be promoted to get panelist permissions.
gotcha. Thank you.
No problem.
Toby, start, yeah.
I think so. Let me see. I don't think so.
Yeah, hold on one second, I'm going in.
I don't think I have.
Yeah, C. Burstein. It's not to be confused with Bernstein, it's Burstein.
Yep, got it.
Law firm. Got MS,
That's it.
that's it.
Okay, just sent.
Send it a closed session one too.
Will do.
I'll send you the closed session one too, because there's gonna be one after it for a closed session. We're separating them
Just
because we want to put the first
the-
one on
I'll
YouTube.
put closed session.
That's for after,
Just let her confirm that she got it.
I'm sure. Yeah, there's protests outside town hall today. Yeah, I'll have to send you the video about, against the city.
Christine.
You see me? I'll be right back. Hi, Diane. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Hey,
There you go.
good evening. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I like that picture behind you.
Oh, thank you.
That's pretty.
My little office that you can't see a thing, but I have paper strewn all over the floor, all over my desk. It's terrible.
Hi, everyone. Good evening.
Hey,
Hi, Jimmy.
Hello.
hey, Cheryl.
Yes,
As long as you know where the piles are, then you can get what you need.
exactly.
That's right.
Speaking of which,
Just so you know, everybody can hear you, so here we go.
Okay.
Proclamation, I give you a copy of it. Here's the proclamation. At the beginning, after the agenda, the minutes, proclamation. Seven o'clock.
Yes.
7 o'clock when you're ready.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. In accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meeting Act, be advised that a notice of this meeting was made by posting on the bulletin board in Town Hall and forwarding to the officially designated newspapers that this meeting would take place at Town Hall at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, June 2nd, 2020. Could we all please stand to salute the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Burstein?
here.
Ms. Prupus? Here. Ms. Thaigla?
Here.
Mr. Wasserman?
Here.
Mayor Lieberberg?
Here.
Thank you.
May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So,
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
All those opposed? At this time, I'd like to present a Gun Violence Awareness Day proclamation. This proclamation declares that the first Friday in June to be National Gun Violence Awareness Day in the Township of Millburn to honor and remember all victims and survivors of gun violence, and to declare that we as a country must do more to reduce gun violence. Whereas every day 100 Americans are killed by gun violence, and on average there are nearly 13,000 gun homicides every year. Whereas Americans are 25 times more likely to be killed with guns than people in other high-income countries. And whereas providing public safety in the communities they serve is the mayor's highest responsibility. Whereas support for the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens does go hand in hand with keeping guns from people with dangerous history. And whereas mayors and law enforcement officers know their communities best, are the most familiar with local criminal activity and how to address it, and are best positioned to understand how to keep their citizens safe. And whereas in January 2013, Haida Pendleton, a teenager who marched in President Obama's second inaugural parade, was tragically shot and killed just weeks later. Should be now celebrating her 22nd birthday. And whereas to help honor Haida and the 100 Americans whose lives are cut short, and the countless survivors who are injured by shootings every day, a national coalition of organizations has designated June 7th, 2019, the first Friday in June, as the 5th National Gun Violence Awareness Day. Whereas the idea was inspired by a group of Hadiye's friends who asked their classmates to commemorate her life by wearing orange. They chose this color because hunters wear orange to announce themselves to other hunters when out of the woods, and orange is the color that symbolizes the value of human life. Whereas anyone can join the campaign by pledging to wear orange on June 7th, the first Friday in June in 2020, to help raise awareness about gun violence. Whereas by wearing orange on June 5th, 2020, Americans will raise awareness about gun violence and honor the lives of gun violence victims and survivors. Whereas we renew our commitment to reduce gun violence and pledge to do all we can to keep firearms out of the wrong hands and encourage responsible gun ownership to help keep our children safe. Therefore, be it resolved that I, Mayor Jackie Benjamin Lieberberg of the Township of Millburn, declares the first Friday in June, June 5th, to be National Gun Violence Awareness Day, and encourage all citizens to support our local community efforts to prevent the tragic effects of gun violence and to honor and value human lives. Thank you.
May I say something, Mayor? I just know that we're not in person, and normally Diane Nelson and Jay Moriali would be there to accept this proclamation. And it's incredibly timely, and I just want to applaud their continuous efforts on Moms Demand Action and Brady Against Gun Violence. So thank you for signing this proclamation. It's very important.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the May 5th Township Committee minutes?
Motion.
So moved.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
May I have a motion to approve the May 5th Special Township Committee minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. TC reports. I'd like to begin. But before I do, I'd like to share some of my personal thoughts about the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis. We all feel the horror, disbelief, and anger as another man of color's life has been taken away by the callous and brute force of racism. What has made this event so incredibly troubling and painful is that we were all a witness to this tragedy. The death of this unarmed man has forced us once again to face the grim reality of racism. As we try to move forward, we must put aside one's color, creed, religion, gender, or sexual orientation, and try to make our community and nation a better place to live for all residents. At this time, I'd like to ask for a moment of silence. Thank you. A COVID update. There are currently 138 confirmed residents with COVID-19 in Millburn Township. The number continues to remain steady, so let's keep up the good work here. Essex County is reporting 17,761 residents having tested positive for COVID-19. Farmers Market. Today was the first day of the 2020 Farmers Market. Please be sure to join us next week. It was very well attended, orderly. Committeeman Wasserman and I were there this afternoon. Social distancing protocols were observed. Residents were very grateful for the opportunity. Ford Farms, Allstead Farms, Dr. Pickle, Paolo's Kitchen, Gourmet Fruit and Nuts, Shop Local, Support Small Business. Hope to see you there next week. The hours are 1 to 6. The lot across from Fiamma. Plastic bag ordinance. This is a gentle reminder that the plastic bag ordinance will be in effect beginning June 12th. I've already seen announcements from our local ShopRite announcing the 5-cent charge for paper, 10 cents for compliant plastic, and 99 cents for a reusable tote. You can bring your own bags into ShopRite. Just know that you must pack your own groceries. The new bid SID. We will be discussing this later this evening, and there has been some incorrect information being disseminated. I want to reiterate my support for this organization and mechanism that will work closely with all our merchants on facilitating onboarding in our districts, working on specialty programming and marketing initiatives that will all act as a catalyst for community engagement. As we've discussed before, the director will be housed in Town Hall. All operational costs, rent, tech support, etc., will be provided by the township. The township will pick up half of the director's salary. The territory will be expanded to include all of our business districts. The approximate $200,000 budget, less half of the director's salary, will allow for an organization to be proactive, drive participation and engagement. There'll be more information about that later. State reopening. Governor Murphy has ordered that phase 2 of the state's reentry program will begin on June 15th. This will include outdoor restaurant seating, sidewalk shopping, and outdoor fitness are some of the initiatives that will begin. This will also be discussed a bit later. June 22nd is the targeted date for personal care openings, barbershops, hair salons, nail salons. We will keep you apprised as this information unfolds. Thursday, Essex County continues its food distribution to our most needy. This week, it will be at Cody Arena at 10 a.m. And if you are an inbound senior citizen without a car, special deliveries are also being made. Please check out the Essex County website for details. Mobile testing for COVID. That will take place Thursday in Maplewood from 4 to 6:30 at the Maplewood Community Pool. Next Tuesday, it will be in Nutley at the Nutley Rec Building, 44 Park Avenue. All these details can be found on the Essex COVID-19 website. Additional information, Turtleback Zoo is hiring. There are job opportunities in guest relations, paddle boats, treetop adventure, parking, and maintenance. All individuals must be 18 years of age or over. There is also a website for additional information through the Turtleback Zoo. That'll be also on our website, so you can link there as well. And last but not least, Millburn Township. Our rec department, in conjunction with Summit Sounds, will be hosting 5 nights of drive-in movies at the high school parking lot. Those nights are June 25th through June 29th. So please mark your calendars and be sure to sign up. Check out our website under the rec department section, and there are more details there. I want to also let everyone know that tennis and par 3 are open, so be sure to sign up for your membership. And last but not least, drum roll please, the inaugural issue of our township newsletter, The Mill Wheel, will arrive in your inboxes tomorrow. Please be sure to read it, share it, all the pertinent information, and encourage your friends and neighbors to sign up. It is free. Okay, now we'll take our committee reports. Cheryl, you're right, you're right in
Sure.
front of me.
Sure. Okay, we had a library board of trustees meeting for the first time in a couple of months. Basically, the thing that we discussed was how much traffic traffic, I put that in quotes, the library has had in its electronic library, fulfilling people's need electronically. And the other major item that we discussed was its application for the grants that finally are going to be put into play very shortly. So those were the two main items discussed at our Board of Trustees meetings. And unfortunately, because of COVID, the Friends programs have not been going forward.
I believe the library's in the second phase somewhere after June 22nd for the governor, so
Correct.
we'll stay tuned.
Correct. So we're looking forward to the reopening of the library.
Thank you. Diane, would you like to go next on your committee reports, please? Oh, you were finished, Cheryl, yes?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
It's the only one.
First, I'm very happy to hear about the library reopening in phase 2. Jackie, as you know, I met with Maurice from Mazer yesterday on the Avenue. Would you like me to talk about that now? It's not an official report, but I can talk about that now or under old business.
Whatever you'd like, either way.
Okay, I'll just bring it up now. So last meeting, we three of us said that we would like to task Maurice to look at the plan that there was an initial, I'll just share this here, drawing done in-house to work on the lot behind Town Hall Plaza and the entrance into Town Hall Plaza. So Maurice spent a good time looking at the site, and then he went back to his office, and I'll just read it very briefly. He reviewed the concept plan prepared by Casey and Keller, and our in-house engineer identified as concept number 2, and his following comments are: the concept appears well planned and designed. It achieves the following purposes and benefits: create 16 additional spaces for downtown area, reduce the number of curb cuts on Essex Street. He also didn't mention, but it adds a sidewalk and a safe new crosswalk at a better location. It eliminates the existing intersection of Town Hall Plaza and Essex Street, which is an improvement since the left turn to Essex Street has a sight distance restriction, and the guy wire has actually been identified as a crash conflict. This concept could be tweaked to increase parking and reduce cost. The ultimate design will incorporate signage, landscape, and possibly some common space features. I don't know if that's picnic benches. The order and magnitude of the construction cost is a very rough estimate, and it does come out to between $350,000 and $400,000. We all just received this at 5 o'clock tonight, so I hope we will continue to seriously consider this for a project that will complete a portion that was left incomplete in the initial Complete Streets project. So I hope that there are at least 2 more committee members who will continue to have Maurice at Mazer go into detailed estimates and possibly go out for a bid. It's about a 4-week construction project, and it would not interfere with traffic coming on Essex Street. The other thing, we spent some time on Millburn Avenue in front of Dunkin' Donuts, and Tara, I guess you saw us from your storefront, you joined us. And this is an initial concept. I'll just put this here briefly. And what Maurice suggested, because we talked about that the width on the raised parking is too narrow. When he noticed, all the cars were hanging off by about a foot, foot and a half. And his suggestion is to remove the existing bollards and put these planters, like a rectangle planter, 22 feet spaced apart. They would be a visual reminder that there is parking delineation between the sidewalk. They would be 2 feet back. They would not be that wide. They would be heavy, so they would not be moved. There could be like a rubber bumper and an illumination for at night. And this is something that could also talk about delineating the parking spaces with paint. If you remember a few years ago, we tried putting tape down that did not work. He also said to remove the existing round planters can be used somewhere else, which we talked about, the Dunkin' Donuts crosswalk. They would be a really good space safety provider bollard there. So this is a very rough sketch. This, I don't know, Alex, if this can be done by DPW, if our township committee members agree that we want to look into this as a serious consideration, could be done quickly, inexpensively, and this is planting season. So if we do this, this could happen fast and open up the avenue visually and more space to park on. So I hope I can get 2 more committee members to continue looking into these projects and ask Mazer to give us a serious look further. So thank you, that's it.
Thank you.
Yes. Mayor.
Committeeman Wasserman.
Thank you, Mayor. So I want to announce that on June 5th at 3 o'clock in front of Town Hall, we will be raising the Pride flag, which is especially timely during this week. And I just reflect that our community is a diverse community where everyone is welcome, and I think this Pride flag symbolizes that. And I know that we have restrictions of 25 people that we can socially distance, but I'm sure we will, try to accommodate anybody that wants to come, within reason, and it will be, videoed. So that's this Friday at 3 p.m. And Committeewoman Edlow started this tradition, and it's I think it's very, very timely for our township to do this. Aside from that, I'm also supporting the our bid that we're talking about. The mayor and I have been in discussions with commercial property owners, merchants, residents, and again, we're coming through a pandemic. We're coming through a economic downturn. Again, my overriding concern is our merchants, our restaurants. A lot of our local businesses are just hanging on, and I really believe that a bid could be impactful. This is something that could really help them in terms of marketing, retail retention, more communication with the community, potentially grants, for certain businesses. This could be very helpful. There are many townships that are our neighbors that have been very successful, with their bids. And this, I think that what makes this a little different is that this bid would be a true partnership with our township. It wouldn't be, it wouldn't be out there across the street. This would be housed in Town Hall. This would be under the auspices of the township, and with a lot of work, I think that it has a lot of potential. And I just want to throw it out there that I know that people are nervous about about what it might entail. But this is something that I think is important, and the mayor and myself, we're both committed to making sure that this is done correctly, and again, the office space would be in Town Hall. Anybody working on projects will be done under this rooftop, and it will be focused, and it's something that I think I'd like to really try. And again, I want to throw it out there that, the last time through the DMDA, that was ineffective and they had all kinds of problems. I'm committed to trying it, and if this doesn't work, or if it's ineffective, and if it's not impactful, and if it doesn't help the businesses, then I'd be committed to stopping it. This is just something that I think could be helpful, especially at this juncture in time.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Prupas.
Yep. So yesterday, former Mayor Dan Baer, Committeeman Wasserman, and Alex, we met to discuss potentially closing down some of the streets and using the flex parking in terms of accommodating for restaurants and retailers and the social distances, and allowing businesses during the phases of reopening. So we're going to talk about that more at during new business, but I just wanted to throw it out that that happened. And also, the mayor and I are going to be working on the rules of the meeting and the processes of the township committee. And for onboarding, we are going to be having 2 new township committee people next year. So we're going to start that process. And so we'll have that on new business, not this meeting, but another one. That's it for my reports.
Great. Mr. Falcon, would you like to weigh in?
No report at this time, Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. McDonald?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, Township Committee. I do have a few quick reports. One is I wanted to let the community know that we have ceased our shop and drop for our senior population. It was very successful. We've gotten a lot of really good feedback on it from our seniors. Each one of them was notified last week about the cessation of it via a letter and some additional options for them. We've reinstituted our senior bus so that they can find their way to the grocery store if they so choose during the senior hours, as well as their appointments in the pharmacy. But just to give the committee a few quick stats on it, we ran it for 11 weeks. We had a total of 215 deliveries. We served 43 households, averaged about 5 deliveries per person, and 19 deliveries per week. So it was as things calmed down a little bit, we're finding that more of them would like to get out and do things on their own, and so we ceased that program, but it was very successful. The other thing I'd like to report is we are, as Committeewoman Prupus had reported on, we're exploring a few different things to help with the business community in terms of this reopening. But I'd like to just kind of stress to the business community, if they're out there listening, as well as anyone else, that we have COVID questions at millburntwp.org, that if there are questions about certain things in the governor's reopening and guidances that come out, or if anybody wants any additional information about what maybe occupancy limits may exist, anything that we might be able to help and answer questions on, we'll attempt to do that. If you email us at that COVID questions at millburntwp.org. We've been talking a little bit about this internally, and have people that initially can sort of help guide through some of those executive orders and stuff like that. And I'll be doing a presentation in just a short while, but other than that, those are my reports, Mayor.
Thank you. Would you like to proceed now with the Special Improvement District discussion?
Sure. I have a presentation. I'll be sharing my screen with the participants. I will admit that this is my first go. I practiced it earlier today, but I am going to pull up the presentation.
Great.
Can everybody see that?
Thumbs up.
I'm going to just swap for my distance glasses.
Okay, so I'm reporting on the revised ordinance, hopefully to answer some questions that have been out there that I've heard. I'm sure that the committee's heard. Provide some background to the ordinance that's been discussed previously and is being discussed tonight, and hopefully provide some insight into certain elements of it. So first and foremost, I think it's important to get out sort of this tentative timeline that has been expressed, maybe, and discussed, but certainly I think important for the public to understand. June 9th, we've set up, we're gonna send out information to the property owners to set up a Zoom call to answer their questions and hear from them a little bit more, as I'm sure we'll hear from them tonight. June 16th would be the potential introduction of the ordinance. Again, tonight is just a discussion, further discussion on that ordinance. And again, it's a revised ordinance. So let's keep that is, the ordinance currently exists. However, this is a revised ordinance, and I'll kind of get into that a little bit more. July 14th would be the public hearing consideration for adoption of that ordinance. And subsequently, if that should be adopted, then the appointment of a board of trustees and the articles of incorporation for the DMC. July, August, that board of trustees would start their search for a full-time executive director. Potentially, these are all very tentative. This is all just sort of a general outline. September 2020 would be the hiring of an executive director, and they would have to then go through the budget process, certainly get into, the group would have to get into bylaws, the budget process, setting their goals and objectives, what they want to, what the board of trustees, the executive director, and the advisory board would like to sort of achieve through that organization. March 2021 would start the budget process, and there wouldn't be a assessment of that DMC budget until April of 2021. And certainly, if the committee has any questions as I'm going through this, please ask, or if you want to add in anything, clarificate, that's fine. I'm just going to sort of go through these slides here. So, yep.
So you just said that the first assessment would be in April. When would you be sending out a tax bill to these property owners if this is actually enacted? And when would they have to pay the money?
So the budget process is established in the ordinance. The budget process actually, starts in January, probably wouldn't be finalized until March. And then, because it has to go through a public hearing and all of that, introduction to the township committee as a whole, public hearing. There's the budget process remains the same as it had been in the past with the pre-existing SID ordinance.
So can you just refresh for me when they would be billed and when would the money be due?
They would be billed at the end of March, due in April.
And that would be half of or is it quarterly? How much? Whatever their assessment is, they'll be billed and they'll have to pay the half of the amount, the whole amount.
It traditionally had been half. I think that is something that still would need to be established by the board of trustees and the bylaws. However, I think that traditionally it had been half. However, that can be determined.
Okay, thank you.
And Alex, also, could you, as long as we're talking about, the tax per se, I know that did you come up with a average amount, for the commercial property holders, just so people have an idea of what
Sure.
the taxes?
But you're everybody's, jumping ahead in the presentation.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Okay. My fault.
So no problem. I'll definitely get to that, Richard. And yes, I have, and I'll make sure that that's expressed. So just a bit of background is the Special Improvement District was established in 1992. The boundaries of the previous Special Improvement District were the B4, B2 between Essex Street and Wyoming, the OR2 from Millburn Avenue down to Ridgewood Road, and it had included the Paper Mill Playhouse on Brookside Drive. It was overseen by a district management corporation known as the DMDA. As you know, many of you know, they were housed on Main Street above where the Millburn Standard is now, and they were dissolved by their board in 2018. So why a new ordinance? I think, just sort of in the committee's discussions and our discussions, that the need for a business advocate group, a network of volunteers dedicated to the economic vitality of our business districts. Certainly someone that is focused on the business needs, acting as an advocate in town hall to planning board, zoning board processes, and making sure that they have a focus in on the business community. Certainly, I think we can understand that during this recent pandemic, we've watched other towns around us be able to react to the business community very well. We've certainly done our best to do so, but other towns that surround us, we are as in the third point here, Millburn is an anomaly in that it doesn't have a district management corporation that is focused in on the business community or its business districts. Surrounding towns of Springfield, Maplewood, Westfield, Cranford, Summit, South Orange, Livingston, they all have an active organization. Commitment from the group to have an executive director manage the needs of the board of trustees and the business community. So, an executive director in a lot of cases can act as many different hats, where in the past, I think, where the previous organization may have lost some focus is that it was more about all about marketing and events and things like that, where it should be, and this new organization should be. That's one of the powers of the DMC. However, you also have that liaison to the board, the municipal land use boards. You also have you can recruit somebody that has some retail recruitment experience and the ability to promote and recruit those businesses into Millburn and promote Millburn as a whole and as an attractive place to do business. This ordinance would address the deficiencies of the outdated ordinance in 1992 and the opportunity to provide a focused reemergence from this public health crisis. That seems to be an opportunity in all this, that the new way of doing business and things like that is could be changed for quite some time, and the ability to have a focused and dedicated reemergence from that for our business community could be a positive. So some of the things that are different in this new ordinance that is being discussed and presented by the Township Committee is that there is a larger area served by the Special Improvement District, where I had previously expressed the district from the 1992 ordinance. This one is inclusive of all B2, B3, and B4 districts, and not inclusive of sort of the OR2 or some of these other properties that didn't fall necessarily into a business district. There's greater control by the township there in terms of the board of trustees. The board of trustees is appointed by the Millburn Township Committee. 50% of the executive director's salary paid by the township. The dissolution of the DMCA has to have township committee approval, and township committee approves by law amendments. It also allows the township to administer grants through the DMC, and the timing of the budget will be consistent with the township's budget process, so that there is coordination and the ability to, as was stated earlier, 50% of the budget, 50% of the executive director's salary would come out of the township's budget. This is a map of the proposed SID area, which again is inclusive of all the B2, B3, and B4 districts. It does not include the B1 district, which is the mall at Short Hills, and exclusively the mall at Short Hills is the B1 district. Some of the things that remain the same is the budget process. If some of you have gone through that or experienced or viewed the budget process that goes before the township committee, has a first reading, a read by title, and then goes through a public hearing process as well. It's very similar to a municipal budget process. It does have the assessment of property owners based on the property valuation and the percentage of retail. It retains the exemptions for tax exempt or 100% residential, or whatever portion of that property is residential. For instance, if you had a building straight up that had, retail on the bottom and residential on top, it's going to be assessed at 50% because that's the portion of that property that is commercial. And any vacant or unimproved land is also exempt from that SID tax. the powers that are designated to a district management corporation. Although I'd like to touch on this a little bit. I've heard some questions or things about, what those powers of a DMC are. And those powers of a DMC are enumerated, certainly in the statute that allows municipalities to put forth a special improvement district. And I think that it's important to note that if there are certain powers within that DMC, that this is sort of a permissive list. It's not necessarily a list that the township committee has to have that district management corporation necessarily possess. For instance, there may be concern about the ability to borrow money within that district management corporation. That's certainly something that can be addressed either in the bylaws, the articles of incorporation, or the ordinance itself. So just real quick, how the assessment is calculated. It's the assessed valuation times the rate times the rate. And what I mean by the rate is the rate that is calculated on the basis of the overall assessed value of the district and the budget that is put forth. So I gave a couple examples here, and I'll go through those examples, but then also it's multiplied by the percent chargeable. So if it's 50% residential, then you're getting charged 50%. If it's 30% residential, then you'd be charged 70%. So in this example, property is valued at $814,400. The old rate, the old rate of the SID of the SID in the last budget that was presented by the DMDA in 2018 was 0.0011, and it's times by 65%, which is the percentage commercial. And that SID property at that value paid $582.30 per year. Now, just this is a rough calculation. We've taken what the new SID boundaries would be in those three business districts, and removed all the vacant property. For those properties that we did know the percentage commercial, we established that and just took a very rough look at what it might be. And so against that same property, $114,400. Then the rate becomes 0.00067 times that 65% commeral. The SID tax goes to $354.67 per year. Certainly, this doesn't this isn't an example of somebody that is currently or had currently been taxed. The expansion of the district does then include individuals that hadn't normally been taxed under the SID ordinance. So again, it's the rate determined by the proposed budget against the total assessment of the district. So the last proposed budget by the DMDA or the Special Improvement District the DMC was $206,000. So these numbers are based on that. And so to go back to Committeeman Wasserman's question, the average assessed value in the B2, B3, B4 districts is $1,884,712. And so that would mean that the assessment, the SID assessment, the average SID assessment on that property would be $1,262 a year. So that's the average. Obviously, there's properties that are less than that. There's properties that are much more than that. But that is the average of the B2, B3, B4 district. My presentation. So happy to take any questions from the committee as you may have them.
Alex, I have a question. In vacant and unimproved land, can you just define that for us?
Yeah, so vacant or unimproved land is something that does not have any value to it. So in other words, in your assessment, you have a land improvement and a building improvement. So something that does not have a building improvement on it. It does not necessarily, I know your question might be towards the fact that a business is vacant. That does not mean, I do not believe that means that they're exempt from the tax. But I can clarify that.
Okay.
And Alex, could you just touch on the Board of Trustees in terms of its makeup, in terms of in terms of its membership, and that the township committee will appoint it.
Yeah, so the board of trustees would be a 7-member under the proposed, the ordinance as it is, would be a 7-member board of trustees where one township committee member would sit as a voting member, and then there would be 2 property owners, 2 merchants or owners of a business, and 2 residents that are sitting on that board. And so I think one of the clarifications that have been made is that it's an owner operated business. So it would it'd look to exclude somebody who's the manager of a business but doesn't necessarily own that business. If you're thinking about a branch manager of a bank or something like that.
And Alex, so who will be interviewing? So Richard and Jackie are on the subcommittee. We are starting to get already volunteer interest forms. The clerk told me the more have come in today. Who is going to be interviewing for this board of trustees? Will that be all of the township committee member will be able to interview and have a say in who they feel would be the best people for this?
So it was determined at a previous meeting that Richard and Committeeman Wasserman and Mayor Lieberberg would perform those interviews, provide a list of those individuals back to the full committee for their consideration. So those individuals that they feel would be best served for the township committee's consideration.
Okay,
The township committee's approval, but the subcommittee is doing the work from the meeting from the previous meeting.
Okay, well, I would like to put my objection to that. I think there's a lot of people who will be interested in this. I think this should not be left up to 2 committee people. And I think that like volunteer interest forms that we do in the beginning, at the end of each year for the following year, that this should be something that if there's any committee people who are interested in meeting all the volunteers who are interested, should not be negated from having a process to talk to them and see why they're interested, what they can offer. So I would like to put that out right now, that right now is not a really good, open, far from transparent. If they get 20, they're gonna pick the 4 that they would like us to pick.
No, Diane, no, that's not how it's happening.
Yeah.
We are meeting everybody that has expressed interest in participating. This is not, the selection process includes all the candidates that have filled out a volunteer interest form. As anybody, it's been on social media. There was an email that was sent to all the property owners that we know of and we have left over from the DMDA to reach out and voice their participation. It's been going on now for almost 2 weeks since the last meeting when we voted to proceed with that selection criteria, and it's going to go on until June 12th. So if anybody is interested in participating, we are more than happy to meet with them. And then once that selection process has been executed, then the short list is going to go back to the TC for final approvals.
Wait, Richard, please don't interrupt. I'm trying to finish to Jackie. But Jackie, you and Richard will be selecting the short list from those. So
We'll be discussing all the candidates.
But you will be. You
Okay.
will be.
No, Diane.
No.
So explain to me exactly. So we'll get 50 applicants, and
I hope we get 50 applicants. I think the realistic number is more like 30.
So
Yeah.
you
20, 30, I don't know. I can tell you thus far, we've had 12.
Yeah.
okay,
We
so,
met, this was what we were going to discuss in closed session later, the 12 applicants. It's by no means a complete list, but that's where we are in the process thus far.
so we'll discuss in closed session how those 12 applicants, if all of
We're
us.
not discussing the 12 applicants because it's not a sample. It's not a full sample. You can't discuss the 12 without knowing you can't look at the criteria in a vacuum. And if it's 12 people and there's 20 left. So that would not be an accurate sample. So until the whole process is, we can give you a yardstick, and we intend to, but we are not going to discuss the selection process until we've met all the candidates for selection.
And who will be meeting all the candidates for selection is my question.
Richard and I.
Yeah.
So you are expecting all of us to vote on this potentially, but I
This
will.
is the steering committee, Diane. This is the trustees that's going to go on to, and only one TC.
Jackie,
one
I'm not
TC.
going to. Jackie, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm saying that's not transparent, and I don't think that's a good process. But you and Richard are running the show, so we'll just leave it at that.
I guess the question is, why aren't you doing open meetings or noticed meetings as we would do, for instance, the planning board, zoning board applications, volunteer for any of the committees that we are always populating every year. The question I think Diane is asking is, shouldn't this also have been done as an open, with a noticed interviews?
Thank you for articulating that for me, Cheryl. Thank
I
you.
think that's really what
Well, you guys, we talked about this
At the last meeting, at the last meeting, this was
Everybody agreed on this.
This is what we discussed.
And
This
nobody.
process, and nobody had made any objection at the last meeting.
And none of our fellow committee members will be excluded from this. I mean, certainly we're going to share everything with you, and I don't think there's anything precludes Committeewoman Eglo from speaking to any of the candidates. I mean, everything will be transparent.
Not if you are handing us a short list, Richard. It's not.
I think we're going to. I think that everything will. I think that when we are in session, everything will be on the table. I don't think I came to this thinking that we're going to exclude anybody. I think that just for the process, that it was, it was more efficient for the mayor and I to sit with people and do the interviews. Doesn't mean that we're not going to share all of the information and that you won't have a full say in this.
Richard, all I'm saying is, when we have picked, like Cheryl has said, for volunteer interest forms, any committee member who's interested in meeting the applicants, it is then open to them. It has to be noticed if you have more than 2 people. And I am asking, I'm putting this as a public, putting this out publicly, that if this is going to be something that could potentially happen, we all know we're getting the letters. I know that I don't want to take a lot of time. I know there's probably a lot of property owners who are watching this, and we have to be as transparent as we can be. And right now, having 2 people on the subcommittee handpick a short list, I don't agree with that, and that is my position.
I'm fine with it.
Cheryl, do you want to weigh in?
Not on this. I think I asked the question. I think it's better form to have, I understand both sides. I understand that interviewing 30 people can be very unwieldy. But if people have the ability in their schedules to attend, I think if you're going to attend them, you have to attend all of them so you can weigh in on whatever. But I do think that the better form would be to have noticed meetings, and if anybody member of the township committee wants to attend, they should certainly have the ability to do so. That wasn't my question. I have a question for Alex, actually, if I might.
Okay, yes, but I just want to finish this.
Sure, go ahead.
We discussed this at the last meeting, and we made it very clear that this was the process that we recommended as in the issue of transparency and in the issue of trying to expedite the process in a time of COVID. So at that point, I would have thought that if there was some objection or some concern about the process, that it would have been discussed then, not when we have already started the process and now we're looking back. So,
well, I will again disagree with you, Jackie, because nothing is set in stone, and there is no shame in changing your mind. There is no shame in making this a very open and fair process. And if you and Richard are the subcommittee and you're dictating that this is the way it's going to be done, because if I didn't understand that 2 weeks ago, I'm expressing it very clearly now. It should be an open meeting. It should be an open process. And whoever applies, there has to be, all of us, if we pass this, we are all responsible for this, implementing this tax and why are we rushing because of COVID? That's the reason to go slower. Why are you rushing anything during COVID?
Like Diane, I'm gonna say why, and I really, I'm so happy that you've changed so much from last year and holding your PAX committees when there were closed meetings, you handpicked them. I'm really glad that you're really living into your transparency claim right now. I think it's amazing. Just want to congratulate you for that. But I think that there is a purpose for all this because we are heading into our vision plan, and we're gonna want a voice for the business community. So I do think that we don't want to keep dragging this out, because when the vision plan happens, if it happens, are you texting? Hey. So
No, I'm
anyway,
reading my paperwork. Tara,
oh,
can you
got it.
please act like a grown-up towards me, please?
I am. So that's cool. It's really fine. But so what I'm saying is that there is a good timeline here in terms of having this in place and getting it started.
And I also feel that there's a sense of urgency because of in talking to our restaurants and our small businesses, I think a lot of them are in trouble and could use support right now. So I have a sense of urgency to get the process moving. But I want to be clear that I think that the committee will be fully informed, and you'll have a full say in whatever we do.
Okay, I want to say something to you, Richard. A sense of urgency right now, when Nancy Stone sent us a list of 17 property owners who are saying, put the lid on Sid. Now,
Some of those people actually we checked in on, that's not real. But this has to, can we move on? Where are we in this meeting?
Can I please ask my question?
okay, I'm just
Yes,
gonna say,
please. This is
to keep using COVID as a sense of urgency, it's the opposite. The sense of COVID is because we have.
Well, that has not been our reaction and what.
I know. I'm going to disagree with you. Go ahead, Cheryl. I apologize for interrupting you.
No, that's okay. Just a quick question. Who sets the first budget and when does it get set?
So who repeat the question. Sorry, Cheryl.
That's okay. Who sets the first budget? One of the issues apparently is the costs to our property owners, et cetera. Who sets the first budget and when does it get set?
So the first budget is set by the Board of Trustees and the Executive Director, and it would be set in according to the ordinance, the budget process begins in January of 2020 of that year. So it would be January of 2021, but it wouldn't get, as I stated earlier, it wouldn't get sort of finalized until March and issued until April. And so in that meantime, in the year of 2020, this year, we would, the committee and the township would be taking on that expense of the executive director to get the ball rolling towards a functioning SID and district management corporation in 2021.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Alex regarding this
One
bid
more.
SID? Sure.
So what is the anticipated cost to the township in 2020?
So it's somewhat difficult to answer that in the sense that there's not a salary range established for the executive director position, which would have to be established in terms of the search. So then if the township established that salary range, and we'll just, for an example, we say it's $80,000. And we're not anticipated to bring on an executive director probably till September, then you can assume that the township would be on the hook for approximately a third of their salary, or a fourth. Quarter of their salary. Yeah.
And are there any other costs that we anticipate incurring in addition to the executive director?
Placement in town hall, maybe some office work, partition, computer, and that type of stuff, but nothing further than that. And certainly there would be a portion of that quarter would include any benefits that are provided to that executive director.
Thank you.
I have 2 questions on the paperwork that I was looking at on my lap, which is on page 6. which is section 7, G and H. Fund the improvement of exterior appearance of properties in the district through grants and loans. H, fund the rehabilitation of properties in the district. Where is that funding coming from? Is that coming from the $200,000 collected? I wanted some clarification on that. Maybe, I don't know if that was Kit, would be you. You wrote this, I believe.
I don't know where you
It's
are,
not on our
Diane.
page
Yeah,
six.
what page?
Under what number?
Section 7.
Top of
Page
page,
six.
on my page 6. Section 7 starts on 5. If you flip it over to page 6.
We have different numbers,
Yeah, we have
Diane.
different numbers. But
Okay, so
what's the header?
Powers of the Designated District Management Corporation.
So I think the answer to that, Diane, is that the funds for anything that is involved could be provided by the budget of the district management corporation, could certainly be provided by a capital line item for the township or something like that. But also there's a loan program that special improvement districts are allowed to borrow from. And as I said in the presentation, any of these district management corporation sort of functions that the committee may be concerned about, uncomfortable with, or sort of see that it might not work in what you're trying to accomplish here, can be addressed through the ordinance, through the bylaws, or through the articles of incorporation. If there's an uncomfortableness to, let's say, the ability of a district management corporation to purchase property, which is enumerated. I think it is letter or number 9 in the statute, to accept, purchase, rehabilitate, sell, lease, or manage property in the district. So that's something, again, that the committee is not necessarily comfortable with. It's something that you can address through your policy making.
Yeah, if I can make clear at this point, as far as the drafting of this ordinance is concerned, these are the identical powers that are currently in your ordinance and have been there since 1992. I didn't add or detract from them. It's the existing law in Millburn Township. If you want to, obviously, if you want to change any of this or you want to regulate it in some fashion, you can do that. But there's nothing new here, is what I'm trying to point out.
I just guess those were never used before.
Correct.
And Alex, Kit, does that have to be included in the ordinance? Can we, if that was a big issue and we decided that we didn't want the district management organization to be able to have that ability,
Right.
could we scratch that out of the ordinance?
You could scratch it, or you could leave it in and provide in the bylaws that, for example, I don't know who would loan money to a DMC, but anyway, that they couldn't go out and get a loan without the township committee's approval. And have the bylaws say that as to, sections, whatever it is, H, K, and N, they cannot be implemented by the DMC without the township committee's approval.
But we
Or you
could
could just eliminate it.
scratch it.
You
We could
want
say, we don't ever
Strike it.
need it.
Yeah.
Great. So that's an option if that's a big issue as this unfolds and we want to talk about that.
Certainly.
Okay, it's good to know.
I would agree with you. I think that we should really consider scratching that, or I think we should discuss that because, in getting involved in bringing back the bid and helping the merchants, some of my goals would be retail recruitment, retail retainment, helping the small businesses, potentially digital marketing, trying to get an executive director that's really going to be impactful and helpful to all of our restaurants and businesses. There's, that is really, my 2 cents in terms of what I'd like to bring to the table in bringing back the bid. I also want to point out, and Alex touched on this, that we've tried to eliminate a lot of waste and inefficiencies from the last bid. The fact that the last DMDA was paying rent elsewhere, that they were operating somewhere else, that they were paying for office expense. This is a much more efficient model, and this is a model that the township is going to play a very direct role in this to make sure things function and get done.
And also keep in mind that there is no chamber right now. So the merchants are really at the mercy of their whatever they can do on their own during this crisis, because for all the chamber is on furlough and they're not operating as they did before. Excuse me. So yeah, so I just wanted to mention that as well.
And I'd like to just address something that kind of I think that there was like a lot of conversation once people found out that this was going to be discussed. There was some conversation about whether or not this was going to be first reading but it's just a discussion and a presentation, and that something had been brought up that I just want to address publicly about Summit and what they were doing in Summit as an alternative. And that is something which we were all paying attention to. And the township cannot fund money or give money, collect money, and then distribute it out. There's no way that they could support the businesses in the way that Summit is successfully doing it or Westfield successfully doing it during this time. So there was COVID brought about a huge gap that there was no one who was, there was no person, there was no mechanism. I mean, Alex stepped up and we all stepped up to try to help disseminate information, but we were limited in our capacity to do so. And I just want to remind everyone that we were having this conversation pre-COVID. Diane, you brought it up. We sat, we talked about it. We were at the planning conference. I mean, this is not new. We all agreed. Cheryl, we had a conversation in February about this. So like, this is even before COVID, we were talking about wanting to do something like this. So I don't want us to forget that. And I think now more than ever, we can all come together and figure out what we're comfortable with implementing and giving it a try. So I feel, yeah.
I just want to respond to you, Tara. You're right. We've been discussing this. That was an excellent planning board conference. I was very impressed with the executive director of Cranford, and I think it's Highland Park. I showed Alex another town in South Jersey who has an amazing organization. The point is, this was all pre-COVID, before these stores were closed and shuttered for 3 months, and before the landlords were not, were collecting their rent.
My landlords collecting rent, some are.
Tara, you have to stop interrupting me. What I'm trying to say is, we have to be cognizant that our landlords are hurting and their tenants are hurting. So although the need is definitely there, we just have to remember we're asking to enact a tax on people whose revenues are at a loss, some in a negative. So that's what I'm talking about, the push. When you say it's a push because of COVID, it's also a pause because of COVID, because the money, the dollars are not necessarily there. And I think
they're not going to be collecting until April of next year.
You've got to stop interrupting me.
But Tara,
can I finish my sentence, please? We have to open this up. I'm glad that you are now having a Zoom meeting with the property owners, because this is why I think there was such shock value, because
there was misinformation that went out, that this was first reading.
Tara, you just keep interrupting me. You got it.
We're having a conversation. Okay, go on. Go on.
Okay, I'll put my finger up and I'm done talking, because you obviously don't understand.
Diane,
I'm saying is, you have to open this up and talk to the people who will be paying for this.
Great. So you want to repeat yourself and talk about stuff that's already happening, right?
The meeting will take place with the property owners next Tuesday.
Right. It's already happening.
Diane.
What are we talking about?
And I'd actually like to add a meeting with the merchants also, because I think our merchants are what this is all about also. So if there's any way that we could see if we can do a Zoom meeting with our merchants as part of the process, I'd really like to bring them in, bring them in even more if they're interested and if it's possible. because it is the property owners, and it's our merchants, it's our residents, and again, we have to do this together to be effective. And I take Committeewoman Eglow's point. I mean, these are severe times, and but I also think that the downside of not doing this, of not investing, this money properly, is that we could have more vacant stores. And if we don't try to help our businesses, you're going to have more stores on Millburn Avenue empty. And we have to focus on this because this is part of the vitality of our town.
Good point, Richard.
I just want to weigh in on this as well. I think that now is actually an opportune time to be doing this. You're not, I think now is your planning stages. You're putting it together. You're putting your teams together, and you'll be operative essentially next year. So, which is when your budgets are going to go into place, when you're going to be looking for the budget money. And so I think that at some point you have to start the planning. And I really do think that now people have the time to do it, and we should be doing it now. And I do think that this is the right time for it.
And Ken, I just want to restate one last thing, and I'm talking too much tonight, but if this is not impactful, if this does not help the businesses, if this is a waste of effort, and certainly the mayor and I and all of our committee members have been thinking about this, discussing this, but if this is not, impactful, I wouldn't want to continue it, after a year or two.
What? I object to that. I think you need to give something a chance to work before you presume something's not going to be impactful, something's not going to work.
I'm not presuming it. I just don't, I'm also cognizant of the DMDA that went off the rails, that didn't function for a
Can
number
we
of years.
stop denigrating the people who were on the DMDA last time? At the end of the day, people didn't think it did its job. People didn't think it worked, but I don't think we should be denigrating what was. You have visions for what will be, and that's what you should look forward to instead of backwards.
Well, and the mission is the same, isn't it? The mission is the same: to drive engagement, to drive support, to drive participation on all levels, whether it be our residents, our property owners, just to energize and be a catalyst and an umbrella, if you will, for a metaphor in the storm, and really and drive some initiatives and some creative programming and some communication, and have this organization mechanism that is going to spearhead all those initiatives. I don't believe that I don't believe that the property owners could do this. The merchants could. We spoke to quite a few merchants, and what they said was, "Oh, we need this, we need this, we need this. Now more than ever, we need it." But everyone is so busy and so focused on trying to keep their lights on that they don't have the time, the energy, or the inclination. So,
and the fact of the matter is, nobody's doing it.
Exactly. So here we are. Yeah. So I think also, just an aside, I think this, the fact that this individual is going to be housed in town hall under the auspices of Mr. McDonald in this building, and have access to all the other decision makers, from whether it be the building department or the property, the ability to get answers quickly that whole process will be expedited, because this is the room where it happens, so to speak. So I think that for all parties concerned, I look at it as a tremendous win, because you're going to have boots on the ground and one mission. So I always say you got to participate in risk reward sometimes, and sometimes I don't think there's much risk, and I think the reward is tremendous.
Agreed.
Thank you for listening. There's a problem with the technology. We're having some PC issues, so just bear with us as we address this, and then we'll begin to take.
Continue. I think it's just about this.
Okay. Do any other TC members have anything else that they want to add here before we go to public comment? Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, Millburn Town Hall will be closed to the public for this meeting. Directions to access our meeting via Zoom have been properly noticed. If you'd like to speak during public comment by the computer or an iPhone, please raise your hand and you will be acknowledged. If you're dialing in via phone, please press *9. All members of the public wishing to speak will be put in a queue to address the committee. Excuse me. Please state your name and address so your comments may be properly recorded. Whenever an audience or committee member reads from a prepared statement, please email a copy to the township clerk at townclerk@millburntwp.org. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, we ask that speakers limit their comments to 3 minutes, and we ask that you not repeat the comments that are made. This is a business meeting. Please address our professionals or staff directly, and please direct all comments to me. Please be patient as we go through this process to engage the public. Thank you. I will now open the public comment period.
Mayor, I'll begin to allow people to speak who've indicated they wanted to comment.
Great. So I'm sorry.
I'll begin to allow people permission to speak who have indicated they would like to comment or ask a question.
Thank you, Mr. Homsey.
Jimmy, I would just announce their name too.
Yeah,
So they know.
and their address, please. Right? Is it their name and
You can
address?
see their name.
Well,
Yeah.
they should announce their name and address. However, Jimmy should let you know who he's allowing in to speak.
Parlavecchio.
Michael.
Michael Parlavecchio, yeah.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the committee. Michael Parlavecchio. I live on Fairfield Drive in Short Hills. Wanted to say thank you for all your commitment during this tough time, showing up and participating, whether live or by Zoom, like the rest of us have been. I just wanted to be brief and quickly lend my support to the proposed ordinance you're talking about with the amendments to the Special Improvement District. I think it's a great idea. I appreciated greatly Mr. McDonald's explanation. I think it helped me, although I had a chance to read the amendments. I think his explanation was very helpful. And I think it's a great idea to bring some vitality to the downtown, and especially during this time when many of us have been home a lot more than we're accustomed to. We recognize and really feel the need for a vibrant downtown. I'll speak for myself even more than ever. I think we do many things extremely well in our town and many things better than most. And I think this is another area we could really succeed in. I look forward to seeing this process unfold over the next number of months and into next year. And I think Ms. Burstein had a good point that now is the planning stage, and you don't want to be fighting the last war, so to speak. So when we do eventually come out of this, both economically and on the health side of things, we want to be in a position where we can assist our merchants, assist our downtown, and provide good services for the people. So thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing this go forward.
Thank you.
The person, their name just shows as NV, now they have the ability to speak. If you could
Can you hear
introduce
me?
yourself, please.
Good afternoon, good evening. This is Nicholas Volpicelli, and I live on Overlook Terrace here in Short Hills. I appreciate Mayor and committee members you serving. It's not easy. And I appreciate the new Zoom functionality providing a better forum for discourse. My concerns on the proposed Special Improvement District are twofold. The first is my concern that this district would have the ability to accept, purchase, rehabilitate, sell, lease, or manage property in the district, as well as mentioned, borrow money from private lenders or from government entities. I'm not sure why a marketing organization needs either of those sets of powers. And my second concern is on the governance of this SID. why the merchants and the landlords cannot select amongst themselves the representatives that they feel will have their interests at heart for the governing body. Thank you for hearing my comments. I appreciate your service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Aditi Menon.
Hi, this is actually Aditi Menon's husband. My name is Sujoy Menon. I have a couple comments. Thank you, first of all, the committee members. I really appreciate you serving. As Nicholas said, it's not easy. I live in town. I live on 21 Elsway Drive. So my comments or slash questions are the following. I realize technically what the difference is between the previous DMDA and the new SID, but I'd like to, the committee or Alex didn't really comment on exactly what is the plan. What exactly are you going to do to sort of revitalize the downtown, which is the whole purpose of this? And also I'd like to understand, you said you spoke to multiple merchants, and can we get a list of all the merchants that you spoke to? Because in my purveys in the downtown, I've spoke to multiple merchants, and they don't seem to acknowledge that fact. So with that, I leave it, but thank you for your serving again and giving us an opportunity to take a look at what's going on.
Thank you.
Now we're on the line, Jenicole.
Nadej Nicole. I can see your name.
Sorry, I apologize.
Hi, I'm Nadej Nicole. I live on 101 Norwood Road. Tonight I want to comment as a business owner, a property owner, and a resident of this town. As a business owner, I truly welcome an organization who is going to work to strengthen the town businesses. As a lot of you know, we've been trying as merchants to get together over the past year and a half and organize some things, but we all have full-time jobs, even without COVID. And we had tons of really good ideas, but we could not have many going to fruition because of lack of time, lack of skills, and lack of commitment. So the fact that there's going to be somebody who's going to be doing this as a job is, for me, a great chance of success. As a property owner, I think owning a property in a town that is going to be thriving is going to be a positive outcome for everybody. I also feel that the better our business community and the more we're going to attract other merchants to fill those vacant spots, which again is good for everybody's property value. And finally, as a resident, I think people in town have been craving to get a stronger sense of community. I think a seed will allow that. It would give people like a bigger sense of direction and unity around a community spirit. I think now is really the time to do this. We're all hurting as businesses, and we really need now more than ever support in order to put our business back on track. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say. I'm really excited about it, and I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We have now Miles Moo. If you can introduce yourself, please.
Hi, I'm Miles Moo. I'm from 81 Mountain Avenue. I'd like to know the number of bedrooms in each unit at the Upton or the Matt Cali development. And I'd like to know whether COVID-19 has affected the leasing timeline in any way. Thank you.
Miles, I don't know the answer to that question. I'm going to defer to our business administrator, Alex McDonald. Maybe he can shed a little light on Matt Cali's development.
Yeah, so in terms of the number of bedrooms, we'll have to get back to you, Miles. You can certainly email us at or me at administrator@millburntwp.org, so that I have your contact information and I can get you that information. I would say that it was impacted by the COVID situation only because non-essential construction was shut down for quite some time. This project was considered non-essential. So I'm sure there is some impact to it. However, I can't speak to how much impact or whether that will affect the leasing that was expected in July of this year. But again, if you email us, I will attempt to get those answered.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have now Jean Pasternak.
Yes, hi. I live on Hobart Avenue, Jean Pasternak. I'm addressing this to Mayor Lieberberg. Jackie, you have done a tremendous job communicating with the community over the course of the pandemic, and I commend you for an excellent effort. My question is, I was somewhat surprised by something so tremendously impactful to the township as this SID being voted upon and being discussed when members of the public cannot attend a meeting. There's certainly a different tone when we're doing a Zoom meeting than there would be if we were attending in person. I've done both now, being here and also being present in person. And I think that there's a tremendous difference in people being able to communicate with each other in the community and showing the township committee how they feel in numbers and in tone and everything else in person. So you had made a statement, as I recall, maybe you could clarify that nothing of major significance was going to be voted upon while the pandemic was in effect as far as the emergency orders and not being able to meet in person. So I just really appreciate you clarifying what you had said and then what is happening this evening. Thank you so much.
Well, Jean, when I said that, I did not have a crystal ball, and I actually thought that back in March, we were going to be out of pocket for about 1 or 2 meetings. I never anticipated that here we are 11 weeks later, almost 12, sitting. And the reason why this bid SID is being discussed, it has been discussed continuously since January. And there was other things that that did not demand the attention that this does and this needs, especially now more than ever when our businesses are struggling. And the feedback and what we're hearing from businesses is now more than ever, we need a helping hand. We need a mechanism to help strengthen our businesses and our interaction with the community. We need programming, we need events, we need things that are going to energize and bring our residents back. So that's the genesis of the arc, if you will, of where we were and where we are now. Thanks.
We now have Carrie Strasberg on.
Hi, Carrie Strasberg, 20 Undercliff Road in Millburn. Apologize for the delay. I had to mute the TV that the kids are watching the Marvel movie. They can hear you, Zach, so shush.
Good. Hello, Tara.
Hi. Sorry about that. Teenagers are engaged in civic events. That's the good news. Wanted to thank everybody for their service, especially during this very difficult time, and especially Mayor Lieberberg for her very amazing communications. Wanted to take this quick opportunity to thank the town, the mayor, Alex McDonald, DPW, and the whole committee for allowing the senior class of 2020 from Millburn High School to be able to have a small, in scope, car parade in town on Thursday afternoon. It's going to be starting at 4 p.m. And going from Glenwood to the high school, and then through town. We're doing cars in shifts, so it's not going to create any kind of massive traffic jams or anything like that. We want to thank the police for helping us out. You know, under the governor's orders, we're not allowed to ask anybody to congregate in any one particular place, but hypothetically, if anybody's out in town and, you know, hears some cars honking and wants to wave and, you know, give a little bit of cheer to our seniors, we really appreciate it. So we just wanted to thank all of you guys for allowing this to happen. And we are very hopeful that Governor Murphy will open up the state a bit more and that we will be able to have a graduation at the high school. And we look forward to the town support of any of those activities as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thanks, Carrie.
We now have Nancy Stone on.
Hello. Thank you for this opportunity to be able to speak. I really, I know that I emailed each one of you individually. I want to commend Diane specifically for giving some feedback as to the positioning that the merchants and the property owners are experiencing right now, that they should be included in the conversation, not just on a Zoom and not on these chats, because many questions have been asked of many of you and nobody is answering the questions. So one specific, if you're going to keep the budget the same and 50% of the budget the last time, not to bring up the old, and Cheryl, I thank you so much for not disparaging the previous DMDA, because there were some amazing people that have served over the 25 years that the DMDA did exist. And unfortunately, I made a commitment that if it did not work, that I would propose ending it, as Richard has just committed as well, that if it's not working, although there is a clause in the new ordinance that there is no dissolution allowed. So I don't know how he intends on doing that, which I think should be taken out of the ordinance. But the number one thing that I want to express is that the property owners are against it. I have compiled a list of people that are adamantly against it. I've given you the names of the people. I hope that you contact them, and I hope that in the next meeting that you contact these property owners, because I can tell you that in the last month, other than Jackie, which I really appreciate coming into my store, no one has asked for my input, as not only as a merchant in town, but as a resident in town. I am absolutely opposed to it at this point in time. There's no reason to be setting an ordinance behind closed doors when you don't have the public feedback. I'm thrilled that there's 76 attendees, which we managed to rally to pay attention, because this is what happened the last time, that policy was set, nobody paid attention, and then it's like, what the hell happened? So I urge you to take a look at that list, which I made a correction on. There was one property owner that wanted to remain neutral, and I corrected that for all of you. But this is something that the property owners are going to be taxed on, which filters down to the merchants. And at this point in time, if the merchants want help, then they should get together, pool their monies together, and start it up. We tried doing that with the Millburn Merchants Association, and like Nadesh said, the commitment and the input, it was lacking, and I certainly pulled away from it because I don't have the time. I'm focused on my business and growing my business, but I do help other businesses in their need. So I don't understand who you're talking to, other than a couple of merchants that you might have, but you're not saying who you spoke to. I've given you a list of who I spoke to, and I can tell you, Robert Schultz, Bruce Jeffries, John Rudder, who sent a letter out from Millburn 339 that helped many of you get elected, contributed to all of your campaigns to get elected. He wrote a very strong letter against it. We have Mark Burson that's strongly against it. We have Peter Nallett that's strongly against it. We have George Eisenberg, who's a property owner, Kenny Mandelbaum, strongly against it, Mark and Bruce Hausman that are strongly against it. And no one's acknowledging these people. I don't know who you spoke to, but these are the people that are going to be paying the tax. And as the previous treasurer, I'm telling you that 50% of the budget went to the, and you're generously giving, 50% of the executive director's salary. It's a nice token, but why don't you just pay the executive director yourself and test it out on your dime instead of our dime? You hire an executive director. If these merchants that you so-called claim want it, you pay for it and test the waters on your own dime. You have a side hustle budget. You do it instead of us. It's wrong what you're doing, passing this ordinance, especially with no dissolution out, with the ability to be able to borrow money, with the ability to do a lot of things that is absolutely 100% controlled by the town council, including, which Diane highlighted, you, Jackie, you and Richard are handpicking this executive council to pick the board. That's not right. That's not transparent. That's not fair. And Jackie, I'm very fond of you, and I really appreciate the effort. And Tara, you should know more than anybody that what went through, and there was good people that tried to make it work. And I don't know who you're going to get. There's some couple of new people in town, and it's always nice to have fresh faces. But let me tell you something. The power that you're giving yourselves to control this organization is absolutely 100% unacceptable and not transparent, and does not need to be passed right now. This needs to be put on pause.
Thank you, Nancy.
We have now someone on the telephone that's number ending in 7111. If you could announce yourself, please.
Yes, good evening. My name is Perry Urso. I'm here with my husband, Vincenzo Urso, property owners of 514 Millburn Avenue, 508 Millburn Avenue, 506 Millburn Avenue, and 1 Short Hills Avenue. As a property owner, business owner, and resident in town, one, I would like to thank you all for your time and your commitment to the township. I believe that you all are in receipt of my email that was sent this afternoon, and with an addition to my questions. Are we all?
I did not receive it.
Are we all in receipt of those 2 emails?
I did. What time did you send it? I don't believe I received it.
Today.
I responded to Gary.
I did too.
Okay. Unfortunately, I'm on my husband's cell phone because I'm having technical difficulties right now between internet and my own personal cell phone. So I was hoping, and I was asking that my letter was read, my questions were read and acknowledged and answered. At this point, I have to tell you, it's 12 weeks in. And it's, unfortunately, these meetings are taking place. I have a window of 4 hours of curbside. I'd like to thank the few of you. I don't like to take advantage of any of my relationships because I feel that it's very important to respect each other, and we have our personal relationships and friendships. So I would never impose myself on anybody or my problems or my concerns outside of the township committee. I am concerned. Last week I tried to get in by YouTube, and I feel some of my questions were either oversighted, neglected, intentionally, timing, I'm not sure. That's why I was compelled to write my letter. I have to say that in 12 weeks, I have seen a very small handful, and it's okay. I'm not expecting you to come here and support my business. I'm here for 26 years. I consider myself a townsperson. I consider myself, especially in the upper Millburn Avenue, I'm passionate about this side of town because it's an area of Millburn Short Hills that I consider our home. I value my patrons, my residents, my local merchants, and my neighbors and the townspeople. I'm feeling at the point that often you talk to people and they are terrified to come forward and to speak to the township committee or even the township itself, whether it's certain departments. We shouldn't, as residents or taxpayers, have to feel fearful. We should willingly, and I have to tell you, me personally, I do not like those words, "you work for me." It's inappropriate, it's piggish, and it's not necessary. I am in a customer service business. If I treated my patrons the way I and other people have been treated, I would be out of business. So I want to tell you, I have not one has called me, emailed me, written a letter, called my phone, with the exception of the data going on. 2 phone calls I got, and I do appreciate it. They want to know what Enzo's is doing, what's my hours operation, and yada, yada, yada. We are struggling at 80% down right now. However, we are offering all of our curbside patrons a 10% discount on all of their purchases. So not only am I suffering at one end, but I'm giving back to the people that have been so caring. I have long-time families that have been in and out of these doors. I've watched their families grow to children, to grandchildren, done multiple parties. They're handing me checks. I have too much pride. I can't take their check. We have done what we had to do to invent the wheel and do everything that we possibly could to make our business survive. But not only my business at Enzo's, my real estate business. Now let's go there.
Sorry, I can't hear you, Perry. You're breaking up.
So what I'm saying is, so putting Enzo's aside and suffering at 80%, giving back 10% to my loyal patrons, what I've been doing is that now that my commercial business, because I have 2 businesses in town, is suffering. I've got commercial tenants out of business due to the mandates and shutdown. They're waiting for directions from the governor,
Perry,
from our municipalities. What guidelines do we need to go by? Everyone's
Perry,
saying, "Oh, are you open yet?" No, excuse me. This is my platform. I haven't seen you in 12 weeks. And if you're not going to give me the courtesy to tell you what's going on in Upper Millburn Avenue, I would appreciate that you would extend me the courtesy at this point, because we're hanging by strings. We were unfortunate that we are at this moment not in receipt of the PPP. There's not a PPE. It's us taking care of us, taking care of our own residents, helping residents, merchants helping merchants. Where if anybody was afraid to come out to wear a mask because you're compromised, you know what? I am compromised. But to save my business, we are now open 7 days a week. I'm on that curb every single day. And I am compromised, but I'm willing to save my business at the expense of my health that I care about for 26 years. And now you want to implement, you think it's the time? I want to know all the merchants, because I have signed a letter. I have had a difficult time. I caught this by accident. And Alex, I have to tell you, I am disappointed. I thought we had a relationship that you can call me. You never once. I was pleading to you, telling you how we are suffering. Not only have you not taken advantage of the governor's orders, executive order, to extend the property tax. You know what 2 weeks would have done for me? Let me tell you, all the other towns around us figured it out. Why can't this municipality, why can't our finance departments figure it out? But you know what? I had to figure it out, because I was not extended the courtesy to May 31st, and 2 weeks would have helped me. With tenants not paying, they can't pay their rent, they can't pay their taxes, but I had no choice. So now you're going to implement this at a crucial time? Why don't you sit down? You can have my restaurant, and you could come here, and you could talk to the merchants, and hear their pleas. Ask them, what do you need? No one even asked, are you okay? No one. I'm willing to put myself and my health to save my business and my family. Why can't you? You're there for us. Now you want to implement a SID. Let me ask you something. Now you're going to put this assessment, right? And it's going to trickle down. It's up. The burden is on, once again, the property owner. Just like you did, right, Alex? What happened in December? You changed an ordinance for the parking permit. Well, guess who had to pay those new parking permits at 100% increase? Me, not my tenants. I had to make the decision. I'd rather make and appease my tenant, because now, not only, now there's more, we have Wells Fargo going in, we got Matt Kelly going in, we got Woodlawn going in. So now I'm just a small business up against big business. And so everyone has the mind like, oh, we'll put it on the taxpayer, put it on the taxpayer. Enough is enough. You're not hearing us. You don't want to hear us. And Jackie, if this went by and you guys were talking about it in January and we're just finding out, I found out by accident because I was listening very closely to the Township Committee meetings from the May 9th or May 7th to the May 19th to find this is the first that I've heard about it. It's sinful. It's sinful. I have an open door policy. You could have come to me at any time. I would have made myself available. I would have given you my day off like I've given this community for the past 12 months to do what I have to do for this community. Giving back, donating. It's just so frustrating. Are you really there for us? Do you really think that we need this right now? Do you think the way that you're handling it it's a professional in a manner and you're being transparent? We made business decisions and changed the wheel of how we run Enzo's in 12 weeks. I'm doing Cinco de Mayo in an Italian restaurant to try to change the pace and give my patrons something else. Because you know what? I'm up against 9 Italian restaurants. And everybody, these people are so beautiful. They're trying to give a little bit to everybody. Everybody. I did from Easter, I did Passover, I did Cinco de Mayo, I'm doing Mother's Day. I'm giving up my own quality of life to give back.
Perry, we hear what you're
saying. Where have you been, Jackie? What have you been doing? Why couldn't you knock on my door?
Jackie, this is Vincent. Hold on, Jackie. This is Vincent.
Perry, we have a three. Listen, Perry, we have a 3 minute.
Question, Jackie. Important question, Jackie. Important question. If I don't pay,
who are you? Who is speaking? I don't know who's speaking.
Vincent Urso, the husband. Vincent Urso. I have a question.
Property owner.
If I don't pay these assessments, will you foreclose on my property? It's simple. If I choose not to refuse to participate.
Thank you, Enzo's. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Urso, for your comments. Thank you.
You must answer the question. Will you foreclose on my property?
It is not a question I can answer. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Jimmy, are there any other questions?
Right now, no other person is indicating they would like to ask a question or Jean Pasternak just raised her hand again. If you'd like me to bring her back online.
Yes.
Okay. Jean, you're back in and you can speak.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks. Jean Pasternak, Hobart Avenue. I have to say, I'm practically in tears listening to Perry. I am not a merchant. I am a property owner. I try and stay somewhat involved as best I can in the township's business as much as I can. I just find this absolutely sad that we reach a point where someone who's been in business in this community, whatever number of years she said, decades, and is pleading with the township committee to please hear her out, hear her representing other merchants. we've got to work together. We can't be at cross purposes
Jean?
here.
I agree with you. We have to work together, which is what this ordinance is designed to do. It's designed to be inclusive and to drive engagement and to drive participation. It's not designed so that everyone has to go it alone. Exactly what it's designed to do is designed to help. It's not designed to be a financial hardship or a hindrance. It's designed to be a organization with the support of the township and the resources of the township behind it to engage both business owners, property owners, residents, and other people that we seem to have lost along the way that used to come to Millburn on a regular basis. That's what this ordinance is designed to do.
And the goals and what you just stated.
The goals and objectives are to drive engagement.
Just and that's admirable and that's excellent, but it has to be done in a way that's not.
I appreciate your point of view. I appreciate your point of view. Are there any other? Thank you for your participation. Now there's 6 more. Jimmy, do you want to let the next person in?
Yeah, we have Bernadine Wu, who can now speak.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi. Thank you again to the council for all of your service. I don't know whether this is an appropriate topic around short-term rentals. I noticed it was on the agenda. Is that a discussion or a vote today?
No, it is not a vote. It is a discussion that we're going to bring up under old business. So you're welcome to chat about your opinion right now. You can share it since you have the floor.
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, council. I have shared my experience on multiple occasions. I guess I just, again, want to raise that, someone said everyone is welcome here. It doesn't feel like it. I feel like this topic does not meet the standard by which laws should be evaluated or passed. It feels like this is a not transparent discussion.
What are you referring to? Short-term rentals?
The short-term
or the bid SID. Where the bid SID, we are not voting on anything. Tonight is a discussion. It is not coming for a vote. It is merely a discussion, as is the short-term rental topic.
Great, thank you. So I won't elaborate on the many points, of course, where many of us as homeowners are against a ban on short-term rentals. But I do want to point out that we have made it clear that we are available and we have asked for specific information, conversations and responses from the committee, both in the last couple of meetings where on record the council has said that the council will engage with us. We have also sent emails that have not gotten any responses.
Wait, when did you send an email?
We have sent multiple emails to each of the council members.
I have not received any emails from you in the last 9 months. I have not received any emails. I'll ask my fellow council members. Have you received any emails from Ms. Wu?
Not this year.
Not this year.
Yeah,
I'm not
have you, Cheryl?
Not to my recollection.
Okay. So
yeah, I'm not specifying a date, and I don't think that there's an expiration on emails, and I don't think there's an expiration on the council saying that you will engage in a constructive manner in order to share information. The council also committed to sharing the research and the complaints and the findings of the staff person. So again, I put it to the council, when can we collaborate? When will we get responses? And will you again commit to that before a vote?
It's not on the agenda for voting. We're merely still in the discussion phase. So if you have questions,
we will share information.
If you have questions with respect to the process or specific questions I would just encourage you to email all of us and as well as our business administrator, and we will certainly address them.
Okay, please just note for the record that commitments have been made in the past and not followed through. Thank you.
Bernadine?
Yep.
We will be discussing it. If you can just hang on to the end of the meeting, and at the next meeting during public comment, you will be able to discuss you'll be able to follow up on our discussion this evening. So just hang out a little longer.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
We have Amy Lawrence.
Yeah, hi, this is Amy Lawrence, resident 36 Hawthorne Road. I want to thank the Township Committee for all the hard work you've been doing during this time. This is a really unprecedented time in our history, and you know, faced with many, many challenges, and I appreciate the hard work that you've put in. I also really appreciate having listened to everyone on this call and hearing all the different perspectives of the residents and business. I am a commercial real estate professional, and I serve on the board of been struggling through this. We've been helping.
Amy, you're going in now. Amy, your communication is not clear.
I'm sorry. It might just. I don't know if I can do anything about the connection. Can you hear me now?
Yep. Proceed.
Okay. Well, I don't know what you heard and didn't heard, but I have, you know, some
commercial real estate was the last thing you heard. I heard.
Yeah. And I serve on the board of a performing arts, you know, school and theater company that has been struggling through this time, you know, because certainly there's very little, well, there's no theater and very little education going on, and online is minimal, you know, in the similar way as merchants who, you know, are only doing pickup. What I wanted to say is that, you know, through work, I sit in on lots of calls about the state of the economy and how we're projecting to come back and these kinds of things. And, you know, people are hopeful for this V-shaped recovery. But everything that I've sat in on shows that that is really not what's expected. That what's expected is more of a long, protracted U-shaped recovery, which means sort of a slow, steady recovery. And it's painful for all of us. I really feel for the merchants and other folks in town, because it's not going to be just that we bounce back and go back to where we were, but that it's going to be a slow slog. And, you know, because of that, I heard Cheryl say that she thought this was a good time to be planning and putting something in place to help folks. And I've heard others echo that. I echo that as well. I think that, you know, now is the time to try to put a plan in place that's going to help us in the long term, because it's not going to be just a bounce back. And, you know, I agree a lot of what people are saying, you know, the devil's in the details. How's it going to be managed? What's going to happen? I agree with that. It has to be, you know, set up properly. But I wanted to say that I support the idea of putting the SID together, doing it in the right way, and helping this town come back, because it's not going to be easy for everyone. And, you know, we are in this together. So that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amy.
Thanks, Amy.
We now have Maggie Miggins.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. It's Maggie Miggins, 34 South Terrace in town. And I just wanted to say, I wanted to thank you all for your leadership. This has been pretty unprecedented times. I feel like we get hit, we get knocked down, we get back up again, and then something else happens. So I want to thank you, because Jackie, I think you're doing a great job, and I can appreciate, I do feel for the merchants. I myself, you know, run a business and have a storefront, so I understand. But I do like the idea of the planning piece of this, because it's always, as Amy just said, it's the devil is in the details. And if we can plan and have something set up, you know, it doesn't mean you pull the trigger. You can wait. You could see how it does go. And to her point as well, we're seeing good things happening in the real estate world in town, and I'm really thrilled about that. But we don't know what'll happen come October, November. and to see what happens there. So I guess I wanted to come on and say thank you and to keep up the good work. I think you're all doing a great job. And I look forward to seeing all the planning that gets done with this. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We have Nancy Stone.
Hi, Richard, I just want to ask you, I know that you acknowledged that Perry had sent you and you received the email. Is that correct?
Yes.
So
It came in at 6:12, Nancy, and we had the meeting started at 7, so I didn't check my email before that's what it is. So I did receive it, I did check, but that's when it came in at 6:12 and the meeting started. So I did not see her letter.
Okay,
Thank you.
That's fair, and thank you for acknowledging that, Jackie. I appreciate that, and I'm sure Perry does as well. So Richard, from what I understand, you reached out to Perry a couple of times, and she was appreciative of that, and she mentioned that you were going to read her questions. Are you planning to do that this evening?
Well, I said what I meant was that we were going to discuss it, fully tonight. She did ask questions in it, and I did say that we would discuss the bid. I mean, I don't see why we couldn't, I guess what we were hoping for while she was calling in, that she would have, addressed that, on
Right,
Zoom.
so she definitely.
We were hoping that, whenever anybody calls in, instead of,
Getting it at 6:12.
Instead of reading it and then having somebody speak. I mean, there's no limitation, but I guess I was hoping that she was going to elaborate on whatever she wanted to talk about when she called in. I do want you to know that I was very touched with her note, and I reached out right away. And Nancy, I want you to know that I offered to chat with her and talk to her, and I'm always open to talking to anybody.
So with that said, since she was very passionate in her delivery and she is compromised and working 7 days a week, I'm going to, if you would allow me the liberty to read the questions so that they can go on the record, I would appreciate that. It won't take.
I have her email with the questions. Some of these I would have to.
You're going to have to get back to. I understand that.
Yeah, like for example, the bylaws are referenced in the ordinance draft. Where can a resident get a copy of the bylaws? We don't have bylaws yet.
Richard and Jackie, are you guys gonna, Nancy, excuse me for just 1 second. So you guys are gonna have a merchant Zoom meeting too, right?
Correct. Yes.
So this can all be addressed in that as well.
She could be a property owner.
Right, and she could be in both meetings.
Yeah.
So
right.
This is just to begin, Nancy, and they will have more time to address the things, and we have other things on our agenda. So because I think we should.
I know, but we don't want to be blown off. This is real.
No one's blowing you off.
We're not making any
Nobody's blowing you off. There's going to be 2 meetings for Perry.
I think there's 74. Well, now there's 62. There were 79 people on the meeting. They're now 62. And I think it is important. Perry took a lot of time to prepare this statement. And, she is very concerned, rightfully so, that if she decides not to, and actually her husband was asking the question, nobody gave the answer. Alex, maybe you could answer the question.
You know what, that's not an appropriate discussion right now, Nancy.
Why
nothing
not?
has been, because nothing has been, we haven't passed any ordinance. We haven't
But the thing
enacted
is,
any
you're
legislation.
planning on the 16th, you're planning to introduce the first draft, and there's a lot of things that are on there. When do you think the town hall is going to be able to be reopened then for people to come in and not be on these Zoom meetings? Do you have any foresight as to when that's going to happen?
I do not. I am at the mercy of Governor Murphy when it comes to those kinds of.
So why can't we take a pause on this until we're able to all meet in person, socially distanced?
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna make sure that that Perry's questions are addressed with both legal counsel and our business administrator so that we can look at these in greater detail.
I appreciate
and I
that
assure you that
commitment.
they will be entered into the record with her address, her business addresses that will be, and we will look at this.
I appreciate that.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Alex.
Just real quick. I think we had discussed the potential of using not only the questions that Perry has submitted via email, but also the questions that we received from the comments tonight to produce a frequently asked question and anything that might need some clarification to be able to provide that more information to the property owners and merchants.
Right. And I would encourage all of the property owners to come to that Zoom meeting on Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. and get their questions answered individually.
Yeah.
Right, and we'll also encourage all the individual property owners on that Nancy was communicating, like, reach out to us. Like, we're all here, you have our emails. We'd love to hear directly from the people who have
questions
and comments and concerns.
I would like to ask Mr. Falcon a question. Historically, this is a very easy question for you. Historically, if a property owner did not pay their SID bid tax, what happened?
I don't know of any historical instance where somebody didn't pay. I'm just not involved in that. I hadn't heard about that. But as far as the law is concerned, it's a tax, and the township is entitled to invoke the remedies that are available for non-payment of taxes.
Okay, there's your answer. Thank you.
Jimmy, anybody else in the queue?
Yes, we have Perry Urso and Jean Pasternak in the queue.
Okay, Perry. Okay, we are going to have a meeting with property owners on Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock. So your questions that I received by email, we will be addressing them. Is there any additional questions that you have?
Or would you like me to bring her on?
Yes.
Okay. Perry, you're now on.
Hi, thank you. I've collected myself. I've got my composure. I apologize to the board. Obviously, you know my frustrations. Couple things. So what if we can't make that 8 o'clock meeting? Why can't you make an executive decision as a board to postpone until you can actually have a public hearing based on what our mayor has stated, that there was not going to be any type of big business or any kind of decisions going on during a pandemic. So why can you not follow your own words? Can you answer me that?
Perry, I appreciate your point of view, but there are other people that do not share your point of view. We are here to listen. We are here to take your questions.
Who's not? Did you see my letter with my petition?
Perry, I understand. There are other, if you want to speak to me.
Okay, Madam Mayor, you are
Saying, Perry, if you want to speak to me offline about this.
I do not. I do not want to speak to you offline. I want to speak to you online because you told us property owners in this community that you are not going to conduct business during a pandemic. Why will you not stand by your words? Answer me, Madam Mayor. Answer me.
Perry, I'm not going to answer you. Thank you.
Oh, that you had answered me. Thank you. And
we have a couple people who want to speak again.
Public comments closed.
No. We're at this point, everyone that had an opportunity to speak, we took some second rounds. We're going to move on with other business.
You're closing public comment?
Yes.
To people who haven't had their first chance to speak?
No, Jimmy just stated that it was people that already had their chance to speak.
Okay.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
I will now close the public comment period. The committee will now consider consent agenda items. The resolutions on the consent agenda are 20-120 through 20-127. The public comment now well, first let's talk to the committee. Does the committee have any questions with respect to the consent agenda items?
I have one question, Mayor. Alex should probably be better to answer. Item number 20-125, authorized public sale of surplus property. there's 8 bicycles listed that might be of interest to our residents. How would someone get that list and how would they bid on those items? I might want those bicycles.
Yeah. So generally speaking, we have to make a public sale through, and we do it through a company called Gov Deals. Christine, who is in the committee room, can also speak to that a little bit. But the township is any surplus property or anything that's, you know, from it. These are obviously something that has not been claimed in terms of bicycles, but we have to make an attempt to sell them 2 times before we're able to throw them away or give them away. So generally it's done through Gov Deals, which is a program that sells surplus property.
Okay, there's a lot of residents on work moms, et cetera, looking for bicycles. So what was that website again?
Gov Deals.
Okay.
Yep. And
For
so
all
I think, go ahead, Christine.
And then there is a notice that's actually published that lists the direct link to it. So I can provide that to the website for the public if people are interested in bikes or other items.
That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to make one comment, please. Mayor?
Yes.
Okay. I just am really glad to see that we are waiving the license fee for the sidewalk cafe licenses.
Yep.
That's fabulous. Very good. And that we are going to be permitting the sidewalk sales months of June through August. I think that's really important and very supportive of our business community. Thank you.
And just along with that, just a reminder that last year we allowed for sandwich boards to go out. So if the businesses are listening, remember that you are now able to put out sandwich boards.
That can highlight your business and.
Committee, if I could, just on that point about the cafe licenses, also with that is that with the fee being waived is the ability for the clerk's office to issue that license quickly and after a brief review from the police department or the health department based on what guidance comes out in terms of outdoor dining and stuff like that. But we're going to move very quickly on those. It gives the clerk's office the ability to issue those licenses quicker than in the past, which would had to have waited for a future township committee meeting.
Thank you. Do any other committee members have any question about resolutions 20-120 through 20-127?
No.
May I have a motion to approve resolution 20-120 through resolution 20-127, which are listed on the consent agenda?
Motion.
Mayor, you did
Yes.
have there's also a need to provide an opportunity for the public
to
make comments limited to
Yes.
the.
Thank you, Kit. My apologies. Is there anyone from the public that has a question regarding the consent agenda items 20-120 through 20-127? Please come forward at this time if you have any questions about those consent agenda items.
No one has indicated that they would like to comment.
I'm sorry?
No one has indicated that they would like to comment.
May I have a motion? Okay, at this point, I want to close. Kit, correct? Close the consent, close the public comment for.
You don't need to do that. You have
Okay.
no one who has wanted to be heard, so you can move right into adoption.
May I have a motion to approve resolution 20-120 through resolution 20-127, which are listed on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
May I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Burstein?
Yes.
Ms. Purpose?
Yes.
Ms. Stahl-Eglo?
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman?
Yes.
Mayor Lieberberg?
Yes.
Thank you.
Ordinance 2556-20. Ms. Purpose, you are scheduled to sponsor this ordinance.
I would like to present an ordinance entitled Ordinance Number 2556-20. Bond ordinance providing for the township's allocable share of the flood mitigation facilities project, phase 1 and 2 of the joint meeting of Essex and Union counties, by and for the township of Millburn.
in the County of Essex, State of New Jersey, appropriating $1,650,000, therefore and authorizing the issuance of $1,650,000 bonds or notes to finance the cost thereof. And I'm going to ask Alex to give a brief explanation to the committee.
Sure. So this dates back to, I don't know if the committee, some members of the committee may recall when the joint meeting came in to do a presentation about an overall very large flood mitigation and protection project in their facility in Elizabeth. This is phases 1 and 2 of that project. This $1.65 million, the township is authorizing the financing for it. However, the anticipation of this project is that it's 90% refundable by FEMA for those flood mitigation efforts. So while we are making the authorization and allowing for that funding, it is not that $1.6 million is not out of pocket money. That is going to be reimbursed by FEMA. So and certainly there will be more to come. However, it's good that I think they're doing this in phases, where I think their initial discussion was about sort of this all in one foul swoop, but they're doing this over some time here.
Thank you.
Okay, you keep reading.
So I move, okay. I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with law in the item and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, June 16th, 2020.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Burstein?
Yes.
Ms. Prupus?
Yes.
Ms. Eglo?
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman?
Yes.
Mayor Lieberberg?
Yes.
Thank you.
Old business. As many of you know, Cheryl and I last year sat on a subcommittee that addressed the short-term rentals within the township. We discussed the wide arc from a lot of legislation to very little legislation. And we had discussed an ordinance at one point that was kind of in the middle. The issues that really need to be addressed were we were getting complaints from residents that some were whole house rentals in the smack dab in the middle of residential neighborhoods, and the occupants were not necessarily complying with the rules of a residential neighborhood with respect to noise and garbage. There were some safety issues that were also of concern. So those were some of the things, and we looked at a variety of other ordinances in New Jersey. We looked at the permitting process. We looked at the parking issues, and we drafted an ordinance that we subsequently tabled. We had looked, it was of that previous committees before Richard was on here, that had looked at owner occupied as a principal residence. This ordinance, this draft, looked at a maximum of 2 rooms for adults and some restrictions with respect to the maximum number of days in a calendar year, and a sales tax associated that the township would incur, as well as permit fees, which was associated with looking at this and being able to manage and supervise to make sure that homeowners were being compliant and following safety rules and guidelines with respect to egress windows and access and occupancy and things of that nature. So in the turn, Cheryl and I had discussed this, and last meeting, she had said, why don't we circle back and bring this back on the agenda for discussion? So I've given you a little bit of a short Reader's Digest synopsis of what this draft looks like. And in the time of COVID, just want to know if somebody or how the board feels, the township committee feels about short-term rentals. owner occupied, and things of that nature. So whoever would like to raise their hand first, fire away.
Okay, I'll go first. I'd like to know how you came up with the $500 fee. I find that's very excessive. I don't think we ever had that many Airbnbs in town. I know there was one bad operator in the Wyoming section. So that was my first thing. I think when former Committeewoman Rosenberg and I did the chicken ordinance, we took about a year to get it sorted out where it was fair. I think this $500 fee is actually almost like a backdoor ban to say, like, you know, we don't really want this in town, so we're going to make the fee so difficult. So that's my first question. My second question was, is that $500 fee every year plus the $85 inspection fee? Is that a reinspection every year? I think the last question was on my page 8, number F. It was under 9, small little letter F. No rentals permitted to anyone under 21. Is that usual and customary, like down the shore where there are, you know, a high volume of rentals? So I think those are my 2 questions. Who come up with the $500? Is it $500 every year, an $85 reinspection every year, and why no one under 21? If someone's having their nephew or someone coming to visit or someone coming for a job interview and doesn't want to stay at the Hilton Hotel, let's say, why would that not be permissible?
Well, if they're coming for a job interview, they're going to be 21, right? So
necessarily. I'm just saying why they'd be coming. I don't know why they'd be coming.
But I think the point is to make sure that they are adults, that they are not. You want to take this, Cheryl?
No, I think that's right, but I think comparing us to the shore is a little excessive.
No, I'm just saying when you said you made comparisons to other towns, is that customary that they have to be 21 and over, and an 18-year-old's an adult, they vote? And where's the $500 coming from?
The $500 is, go ahead. You want to take it?
No, go ahead.
The $500, we were looking at some of the costs associated with managing and making sure that there's adequate supervision, as well to ensure that the ordinance would be properly executed. So we looked at the costs associated with supervision.
Isn't that what the $85 inspection fee is for?
No, the $500 would be that, because if somebody was renting on a regular basis, that would be what it would cover.
Okay. I'm just saying that I'm going to say that that's excessive.
Okay, that's. Richard, Cheryl?
Well, I'm not sure that I'm even going to support, I mean, that's part of my problem, is I don't know that I would support an ordinance permitting it at all.
Okay. So you're of the camp now go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, I'm in the camp of the more I think about it, the less I believe that we should have short-term rentals in our town.
Because of COVID?
And not just because of COVID, actually, but just it's the nature of our town. We're, pretty much a single-family residential town, and we have a hotel that is a good resident, that's a taxpayer. We are going to have another hotel that's a taxpayer. And I don't know that we should have short-term rentals in the town.
But we do have residents that may depend on, that may depend on the income, kind of like as extra income to get by. And my original concern pre-COVID was that we shouldn't really, restrict, any residents that are renting out a room kind of to get by. That was kind of pre-COVID. And I have the same concern you do in terms of, this current COVID situation. So, I'm also balancing it, but, I still feel that I don't want to hurt any of our residents that are making ends meet by renting out a room on occasion. So that's kind of my 2 cents.
Fair enough.
I don't really know where I land on all of this. Like in terms of either full out banning it or banning it partially and having different restrictions. So I don't have a formed opinion yet about it. I think we need to do something, but I don't know what that looks like.
We don't have to do anything tomorrow either. So it's one of those things where you can, think about it.
Right.
Could I ask Kit a question? Kit?
Sure.
Kit, is it possible to put in the ordinance? I mean, imagine that the COVID, the danger of COVID is slowly, seems like with the numbers and everything, the COVID danger is slowly diminishing over time. Would it be possible to ban, to ban short-term rentals until a future date, until the first of the year? If we didn't want, if we didn't want the danger of outsiders coming into short-term rentals, until January 1st or something, is that something that our committee could do?
Well, whatever the basis for your concern, you have the ability to establish an effective date for this ordinance. So if you didn't want it to become effective, within 30 days of passage or something, when you wanted to say this will become effective on January 1, then you could do that.
Well, actually, I was asking you the opposite of that, which is it possible to ban, to keep in place the ban on it until the first of the year? Kind of like the opposite twist.
Well, it's not currently permitted.
Yeah,
So
but that's gonna lift.
Well, if you adopt this ordinance, then you will make way for a limited short-term rental situation where people can come and rent a portion of a home which is owner occupied and which the owner stays there along with the people who come in. So you could look at it, you're really in kind of a ban situation at the present time. This is not a permitted use under your zoning. You may remember that we had a companion ordinance to this, which would amend the zoning ordinance when this was adopted so as to make short-term rentals permissible. So you're essentially, and as I remember what the committee did, you're essentially in a ban now. If you want to make it effective late when the executive order comes off or contingent upon the governor loosening things up, you can do that.
Can we continue the ban that we're in right now until January 1st?
Yeah,
if you pass an ordinance, you're in a ban, essentially.
Right, but I'm asking if we can continue, the ban's gonna be lifted once the executive order. It's only under executive order under
Wait,
Murphy,
what
right?
No, I'm saying
On short-term
that,
rentals.
On short-term rentals.
yeah, I'm saying that irrespective of the pandemic or the public health emergency, you do not in Millburn currently have an ordinance that allows for short-term rentals.
Oh, so
you have the equivalent of a ban at the moment.
Even
they're
without
not
the-
allowed right now.
Well, no, but they are happening.
They're happening, but they're happening illegally, essentially.
Oh,
So I just want to respond, when you said you don't want to hurt any Millburn residents, Richard, one of the things that I think is really important as we sit on the township committee, and I don't want to hurt any Millburn residents either, so don't misunderstand what I'm going to say, but I think our job, or one of our jobs as a whole, is to look at what's good for the town as a whole. And sometimes when things are good for the town as a whole, it impacts, sometimes negatively, Millburn residents individually. And everything that we do, not everything, but many of the ordinances that we pass and many of the things that we do impact our residents. Hopefully positively in most cases, but sometimes negatively. So something like this, whether or not you're going to allow this, you have to look at first whether or not, in your opinion, it impacts the township as a whole. So that's, just something to think about. But I understand what you're saying. So in other words, we're just going to sort of continue to think about this, I think.
Yes, so if I got a little bit of a straw poll, so you're of the camp now where you're more leaning towards
Not enacting anything.
I'm not enacting anything,
Which
right?
would leave a ban in place.
But there is a ban in place, but people are still are
There's no
still.
enforcement.
But
There's
that's
no-
but Jackie, that's an enforcement issue.
Well, to that point, if you, as we've said, you have effectively a ban in because it's not a permitted use. If you wanted to reemphasize that or say that anybody who violates the zoning ordinance by engaging in short-term rentals shall be subject to a fine or something, you could do that too to reinforce. But you do effectively not permit it at the present time.
So we could just continue to think about it.
Sounds like a plan.
Does anybody have anything else they want to add about this discussion? Okay, let's move on to 397 Millburn Avenue, property development formerly known as Wells Fargo. Alex, you want to take the lead, please?
Yeah, so as the committee is aware and has been discussed for a while now, there has been several discussions regarding the property at 397 Millburn Avenue. This was actually before the planning board for a master plan amendment, which included some language regarding first floor retail, and before the committee is a draft ordinance of the zoning for the property at 397 Millburn Avenue that includes the first floor retail along Millburn Avenue, as well as a reduction in the unit from 57 to 53, and a affordable component of 8 units on the property. And so wanted to bring the ordinance before the committee. If there were any discussion or questions regarding that ordinance, again, that has been discussed for some time regarding that property. Paul Phillips is also on now as a panelist if there are any questions for Paul and regarding the ordinance.
Hi, Paul. Hi, Paul.
Hi, Paul.
Hi,
Paul,
Mayor. How are you?
Paul.
Hi, everybody.
Paul, let me jump in. The commercial use on the first floor facing Millburn Avenue, can you just clarify? That could be potentially storefronts, that could be a restaurant, that could be that could be any commercial use.
Yes, what we did when the decision, Richard, was made to basically have the Millburn Avenue frontage devoted, the first floor devoted to the generic retail use. What we did is we basically said that any B4 district, a permitted principal or conditional use can go here, obviously other than residential because it's on the ground floor. So in other words, any use that right now is permitted in the B4 district, which is what this property is zoned prior to any new zoning, which you're considering, those same uses would be allowable here. So yes, if you look at the list of B4, any kind of retail, restaurants are a conditional use. That's why conditional use is also transferred from B4 to this ordinance. So essentially the same uses that would be allowed under B4 could go into that ground floor Millburn Avenue frontage.
Except residential.
No, the
No.
ground floor on Millburn Avenue was at one point being considered for 3 townhouse units.
Right.
There was discussion, as you're aware, Diane, at the planning board, and there was some consensus to basically carry the retail at least along the Millburn Avenue frontage. So while the Douglas Street and Essex Street will be residential, the Millburn Avenue frontage can no longer be devoted to ground floor residential. It will have to be retail, other than the lobby area along the corner, and there's a garage entrance there, but the rest of the ground floor would be devoted to any B4 permitted use.
Okay, so I just want to clarify for all of us who were at the planning board. I thought that we had left it that it could be either or, depending on what the developer wanted. But now I understand the developer has approved and is okay with that it cannot be residential.
That is correct.
Will not be.
Other than, right, that lobby, which kind of cantilevers along the Douglas and Millburn front, you're absolutely correct. And the developer was fine with that.
That's
and it actually reduced the number. It actually reduced the number of units in the residential density.
Right. As long as he was on board with that, because that was a really long discussion at the planning board.
Yes.
And Paul, you think that's in the town's best interest to have that commercial? Like, you support that?
Well, there was a lot of discussion, Richard, at the planning board over this issue, and I think there was some disagreement, if I can say so, among the planning board members. I think that this is a sort of a happy middle ground and medium, because right now the B4 zoning would require each of the frontages to have retail. And it was my opinion and advice to the planning board that I didn't think carrying the retail on Douglas Street facing, excuse me, the single family across the street made sense. And I didn't think it made sense on Essex because there wasn't as much continuity. But there was some strong opinion of the planning board that at least the Millburn frontage be considered for retail. We broached that with the developer and basically asked him whether, if we required it, he would be fine with it. And he basically said that would be fine. And we basically rolled that into the ordinance that's before you.
If the developer's on board and the planning board was on board, I think this is very well written and acceptable to me.
Thank you. And it's a fairly, I'm not going to go through all of it, but it's a fairly comprehensive ordinance. And it basically does some good things, like lays out, design guidelines and standards. And we wanted to make sure that what the developer again presented in terms of the concepts and the materials and the building articulation and so forth would be basically echoed in the ordinance. And so we did that and worked cooperatively with the developer as well. So I think we're at the point where we've reached where we considering putting this ordinance forward for a first reading.
Is this the first reading of it?
No, this is the draft. No.
Okay,
this is the draft.
Because I
This
was
is the
just
draft.
like, if we don't need to be making any like this makes me, I'm not ready to talk about this right now. And
It's just discussion.
okay, like I'm not ready to, like, I think that this, I'm not sure what the urgency around passing this ordinance is. And I have some kind of visceral feelings about not doing it in this setting. That's how I feel about it.
Paul, could you maybe go to the urgency of why this is important to get this before us?
Well, I mean, as you know, we have a fairly stringent affordable housing mandate. And, we have a big number and we don't have a lot of vacant land. And, you've heard this from me and from Ed Buzak and from others. And while we have been, put on a little bit of a delay due to COVID in our negotiations with Fair Share Housing, I will say that, I think the township has had a good relationship with the prospective developer here. I think it's been cooperative. I know that in the discussions that I participated in, the developer made a number of changes that I recommended, which I thought were in the township's best interest. And I get the balance, believe me, between, going to the public and the COVID and having the virtual here. I get all that. And that's your decision. That's not my decision. But the only thing I will just add to that is that I do like the fact that we're moving forward with this ordinance in what I'll characterize as sort of a cooperative fashion with the prospective developer in a context where we have a huge affordable housing obligation, and this project is on Fair Share Housing's radar. And that's as much, Diane, as I think I should say on that.
Right. And we have this empty lot with a ready and able financial developer ready to go.
Yeah, and I think you need to consider, you know, I was on the earlier part of the meeting and about the downtown and the SID, and this is just my opinion, but, you know, I think the notion of introducing on an appropriate site housing in the downtown is good for the downtown's future, and I think is a source of business for merchants. So, I mean, I see this as a good project, but obviously it's your decision if and when you want to go forward with that. My only point was that I've drafted an ordinance for your consideration, and if you so desire, and if there aren't a lot of questions or comments, it's basically ready for a first reading. That was my only point. I understand that this is just discussion this evening.
So, go ahead.
I just have one question. All along, I always thought that this was going to be viewed as a rental property, not as a for sale condo co-op, something of that nature. And here I see that it's got, if developed as for sale apartments, it has the carve out of 11 units for affordable. Is that just written in the ordinance just in case that the developer changes his mind, or
No, Jackie, the developer hasn't, at least in my latest discussions with the developer has not changed its mind. The developer's intent is to do rental housing. The reason that's in there is to deal with our fair share obligation. And we know that fair share housing, the court appointed master and the judge are going to review this ordinance at some point down the road. And what we did is we have to basically provide for the either or option. And as you noticed, the relative share increases if it's for sale from 15 to 20%. That's how the number 8 and 11 come in there.
Yeah.
So we had to put that in there just to protect the township in terms of its affordable housing plan going forward. But the developer intends to do it as rental.
And because of the retail on Millburn Avenue, it reduced the number of units from 56 to 53.
Exactly. As you may recall, because you reviewed some of the concepts and presentations, there were 3 townhouses along the Millburn Avenue frontage, which were now being replaced by essentially retail.
Got it.
And Paul, in terms of like the lanes, you know, I know right now we have a single lane. Are we going to address that? I mean, one of my concerns on this project is always kind of like the traffic and the number of lanes. Is that addressed as part of the plan, or is that something that the town has to work on with the developer?
Yeah, so that's not something that would typically go in a zoning ordinance, and those issues of access and any type of off-site improvements would come up during the site plan stage. So the planning board would certainly be cognizant of those issues, and that would be part of their deliberations. And there could be, conditions of approval that would deal with those issues, but the ordinance really isn't the place for that. And there could potentially even be a developer's agreement that grows out of the site plan approval. All those things could be stipulated there, but that's not something that you would put in an ordinance per se, Richard.
I have a question, Paul. So can you just like spell it out for me in terms of like, let's say we don't pass this ordinance, then what happens?
Well, I mean, I don't want to kind of predict the future. Look, I think that, the township has sort of been at this for a while, from the time at which an original presentation was made by the developer. It's probably like between a year or two, if my memory serves me correctly. I know the developer is anxious to move forward. I can't speak for what the developer is going to do or not do if you don't move forward in sort of a reasonable or expeditious fashion. But again, the one thing I'll caution you is that, you've got the affordable housing hanging over you to some extent. And I would just say that I would hate to see this kind of, for lack of a better word, go adversarial. Because I think we've had at least, the township and myself has had a good relationship in working with the developer on this. And I think this is a good quality building and project. And again, I just don't know what would happen if you decided not to move forward. I'm not going to predict that, but I'm only going to kind of focus on the positives of, where this came and where this is now.
Right, and I know the developer really has been very working with everybody, and there's been a lot of discussion on it. But our immunity from the affordable housing right now is till the end of the year. Is that true, or is it tied up in litigation? Do you know? Can you address any of that?
Well,
just so have it out in the open for everybody.
Yeah. So the status of our affordable housing has been in limbo, even sort of about 2 months before before COVID. As you know, what we were pushing for was to continue the discussions with Fair Share Housing and the court-appointed master on our housing plan, which, Tara, as you know, seeks a significant vacant land adjustment. And we had an initial meeting with some people that are in this meeting participated in, which I thought went very well. They asked us, why can't these sites work? Why can't? And I think we had good answers. They were going to do a little bit more work. They were going to do a drive-through, the court-appointed master and the Fair Share Housing representative. And two things happened to basically put that in limbo. Number one is Kevin Walsh at Fair Share Housing Center basically took a high-level job at the state level. So we lost our Fair Share Housing representative, and they're sort of understaffed to begin with. They finally assigned it to somebody, and then along in March comes COVID. So not much has taken place in terms of advancing those negotiations and discussions to try and get some closure to our plan. And quite frankly, I don't need to tell you that sort of works against us, because our goal was to try and get an agreement with Fair Share, get a plan, go to court, get compliance, so we wouldn't have to worry going forward, at least until 2025. But unfortunately, that's what happened. And I know that myself, Kit Falcon, and Ed Buzak have had discussions trying to get this back on the table with both the Fair Share Housing, the new representative, and Frank Banish. But I think what's happened, and certainly Kit can talk to it as well, is that the COVID has kind of stalled everything.
Right, so we don't really actually know, we might have immunity longer than we expected, though, potentially.
So I know Ed Buzak and Kit have been the ones in court getting the extensions on the immunity. I don't know, Kit may know how far we're extended out until, and we keep getting extensions on that. And I see no reason, particularly under these circumstances, we won't continue to get an extension. I don't think that's the issue. I think the issue is because of the circumstances with COVID, we haven't been able to sit down and pursue the plan and get an agreement. Kit, is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think so. Very much so. There's we have the temporary immunity. We're moving ahead, as you know, with the declaratory judgment action to try and get the township's plan approved. But always, how can I put this? Lingering in the background is that if that should go away, then a developer who has a site who says, I'm willing to build this and put affordable housing in it, has the ability to make life difficult for you.
I'm just trying to assess the sense of urgency, but so thanks, Paul and Kit, for answering my questions.
You're welcome.
What's our turnaround time once our committee approves it? The turnaround time is a year, 2 years?
When you say the turnaround time, Richard, for turnaround time in connection with what exactly?
In other words, once the committee approves after the first reading, let's say after first reading and then passage of the ordinance, what is the time frame?
So there's an introduction, as you know, and then by statute, it has to go to the planning board on referral. And then the planning board basically evaluates the ordinance on master plan consistency. And as you know, the board adopted a master plan in anticipation of this ordinance. So I don't think that's going to be a major hurdle. And then it goes back to you for a second reading and public hearing. So it's in the space of how you can work that in the calendar.
And then when it goes back to second read, if the TC approves it, then the developer can then start his plans and go before the planning board with his development.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So things could get moving if he's ready to start, if everything goes according to the timeline. I guess, Richard, I don't know, are you trying to ask, like, when would we expect to see bulldozers on that corner?
Yeah, I just wanted to know, once our process is completed, when we would expect bulldozers to start working on it and when the building would actually rise, But I guess we'd have to finish our process, planning board, and then if I'm understanding everything right, we have the last approval, before it goes forward, right, on second reading?
Correct. And you have to approve the ordinance. It can't go to the planning board unless the zoning is effectuated by you.
So we have the last okay on this.
Well, we have the first okay. It won't get out of it doesn't get out of the box until we.
And then the final.
Yeah.
On the creation of the ordinance, yes. But after that, a process ensues, which we really can't put a time on. It depends upon the extent to which the developer is ready to put together plans that reflect what's in the ordinance, and then take that whole package and go to the planning board and make an application. There'll be a number of hearings. I mean, it can be extended out over quite a lot of months until the final approval is gotten, and then a developer's agreement will be prepared and signed, and there'll be a lot of contingencies in the site plan approval as to other agency approvals that the developer has to get. It's not going to be over there knocking down trees anytime soon. Is there a tree there? I don't even know. Maybe, but you know what I mean.
So Paul, do you have an ordinance based on this draft ready to offer us as first read?
So the ordinance that I prepared, which I believe you have, Diane, I believe it's been shared with you, unless the committee has questions, concerns, problems, issues with it, it is ready to go for first reading.
Okay, yeah, that was my concern, was the first floor. You've answered that. Alex had answered for me, so I'm very comfortable with that first draft being ready to go. I guess you need two more people to say that.
Yeah, I'm curious, what is Batara's missing? I was curious what her issue is.
Oh, I'm here because I have to get my produce in order in by 10. I'm listening. I'm totally here for the store, and it happened late, and I didn't think we were going to be here this late. I'm so sorry, everybody. So
no, that's okay.
I'm totally listening and embarrassed right now.
Is your concern that we are doing this by Zoom? Is that what you're concerned?
Well, that's one of my concerns, is that, we just saw what we went through with the ordinance for the thing, for the thank you for the bid. And so one of them is my concern of doing this, this particular thing by Zoom. Yeah, if there's no urgency for it, because then, I mean, the development in our town is such a large, huge conversation, and yeah.
Well, I would hate to see that this has been talked about for a while, that this gets stopped, and whatever further development we're going to be doing would probably not include this corner. And I don't know.
And it comes back to just the visioning of the town and the area of need of redevelopment. And is that something that gets put into it? These are, I think, valid questions, and to have different input from it. So, I mean, if we're going to put it on for you know, if we're going to keep discussing it and opening it up to the public and the next meeting we talk about it, I'm definitely not ready to put it on for first reading.
Okay, I guess.
That's how I feel about it.
So my concern is that I have no idea how many months we're going to be Zooming. I don't know when we go back.
True.
Even when the governor says, you know, non-essential businesses can go back, and are we going to be having a room full of people, or are we still going to be socially distancing and doing these meetings by Zoom? I think that we have to conduct business. I think that Jackie's right, that at a certain point in time, if you're doing this for a month, it's one thing, but if you're doing it for 6 months, it's a whole nother ball of wax. So.
Well, also, Cheryl, I'm sorry to interrupt, but to your point, this is not something brand new. This is something that's been ongoing because at the planning board months ago. So it's not like bringing up something completely new and unexpected.
Right. No, I know that this has been under discussion for quite some time. I'm not opposed to, I actually think we need to move forward with it. So, you know, to the extent that we're going to have a first read and I don't know that you have to have your second read 2 weeks later. I think, you know, we used to do a month apart. We used to have our second readings not on top of the first reading. So, I mean, that's an option you could take as well. That will allow people some time to digest it and think about it and then come back. And maybe we'll have a, you know, a more peopled meeting by then, although I doubt it.
Well, there's only 2 meetings in the summer, so.
Okay. Well, you have what? One in July and one in August. You have 2 in June, right?
Yeah, we have the next meeting is June 16th, and then we have July 14th, and then I believe it's August
something.
August.
That works.
Pardon me?
Mid-month.
It's like August 14th.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
So anyway, I would be inclined to move it forward.
I would concur that. So.
I too.
Yeah, I guess I'm with you on it also.
Okay.
I'm good. Produce is in, and you guys have consensus. So
okay.
Yeah,
So
we're
Alex, yeah, Alex.
Yes.
Paul Phillips. Is Paul still here? Yeah.
Yes, he is.
Okay. So we're. If there's any other comments or anything in the interim, we should discuss this additionally, and then just look at this. Paul, is there anything else in your opinion that that merits our attention on?
Well, I mean, other than I would encourage you all to read it.
Yes.
And again,
Yes,
it's
of course.
very thorough. And
No.
It's everything in there is designed to protect you as a community, as I said. But, you know, you may have specific questions or comments, and, you know, you can probably get them to Alex. And if Alex needs me to answer, I'm happy to do that. But short of that, again, this is ready to go.
Great.
So did you send us your draft ordinance?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was looking for it. The mail all gets stacked up, but all right.
Okay.
Can you resend it, Christine?
Will do. I'm doing it right now.
Mayor, if the committee is done with that discussion, I just wanted to bring up one quick item on under old business when you're ready.
Okay, so the committee has decided that we will be proceeding with the draft of the 397 Millburn Avenue property development. And we will be moving forward with that as a first draft.
Thank you.
So if the committee doesn't mind, I just wanted to provide an update that I forgot about in my reports. But the committee had tasked us with doing a competition, I guess, with the high school students in terms of wraps for some of these utility boxes. Just wanted to let the committee know that we did receive them. I will share those with the committee. We've gotten about probably about 25 to to 30 total submissions. And I'll make sure that they're shared with the committee. And it was some of them are very well done. I think you'll be pleased. And just wanted to give you that update.
Alex, it's a total of 5 boxes that we're wrapping, as I recall, or is it more?
I think look, in the end, I think you decide how many you like, and that's how many boxes you wrap. But we have a total of 9 canvases that you could potentially use.
Okay. Okay, great. And we'll look at are they in an electronic format that we can view?
Yes.
Okay, great.
We'll be sure to share them through Dropbox.
Okay, great.
Jackie?
Yes.
Has there been any update from KD about the wall?
No, we have not gotten any sketches as of yet about the decorative wall on the alleyway next to Goldberg's. We had discussed that with the committee. We have not received any sketches yet. The idea is that it would be 4 panels, 8 feet high by 4 feet, 2 feet wide, 4 of them. So it's an 8 by 16, right? 8 high, 4 feet, yes, 8 feet high by 16. So we have not gotten any sketches as of yet. I'll needle them to see where we are in the process.
That'll add a lot of zip to that wall. That'll be fun.
Yeah. Well, it will, in my opinion, it will become a real destination. Meet me at the mural or for that, and it'll gain greater access to that parking deck. That people will just use that more as a destination cut through, if you will.
Maybe they can also design an archway on the Millburn Avenue entrance to really bring you to walk towards there.
Yes, that any of that artistic is possible.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll just have to take a baby step and look at sketches first.
Absolutely.
Okay, does any committee member have any other new business to address?
Yes. So as I said in the report, we met with Committeeman Wasserman and former Mayor Dan Bear and Alex, and we discussed, so in some towns, they're starting to close off streets or make them pedestrian just ways of setting up tables so that people can eat outside and address the social distancing requirements once the restaurants open up. So we talked about a few different options and really stressed like doing things in phases, piloting it, seeing how it goes. And some of the proposals, and Richard or Alex jump in anytime, but some of the proposals were to do outside on Essex, outside of Live and Suraman and Essex on PETA, wrap it around to Main Street between Essex and Millburn Avenue, which was designed during Complete Streets to be able to be closed off. And then also to use the bollards specifically to push them back to allow for seating. And since if we're gonna have, like this is a time where like the widened sidewalks will work in our benefit, especially if people are gonna have sidewalk sales so that you're not passing on top of each other and that there could be more space. So if we push out the bollards in front of, on the, I don't know what side that is, but with the Dunkin' Donuts and La Strada, and allow for people to put seating and then also just make it a larger sidewalk. So that was all discussed. Richard, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, so we had a very interesting conversation that actually, we would actually use the bollards the way they were intended, which, again, it's a timely discussion because of COVID, that you need the extra space, and our residents would probably be more comfortable, sitting outside, spacing and giving our restaurants kind of a shot in the arm. So our restaurants would be able to use the extended sidewalks that the bollards, moving the bollards would allow us. So, and potentially closing down Main Street, maybe try it for a weekend where you either do this part or parcel, but potentially close Main Street, allow our food establishments to have outside seating, and then potentially to wrap around on Millburn Avenue on the Dunkin' Donuts side, push the bowlers out and allow our retail, our food establishments, as well as, again, this would also include our retailers, to put out tables and to have the use of the extended sidewalks. And again, in light of COVID and what's going on, a lot of communities, according to ex-mayor Dan Baer, a lot of communities are doing this, and they're finding success with having open space and letting restaurants have outside seating. And it could take place over a weekend. It could take place from, it could be Friday night to Sunday. It could be potentially, Friday night, Friday evening, 5 to 9 p.m., and then Saturday evening, 5 to 9 p.m., or it could extend from Friday evening to Sunday evening, and you could just block off, that space, for the whole weekend, and then and let our residents, enjoy outside seating and extra retail space, and and that was a conversation, and other communities, as I mentioned, are doing this successfully. And it's kind of an exciting topic because it's summer, we have COVID, and we have bollards to move, potentially.
And I think we just had this conversation yesterday, so it's all preliminary.
It's all new, yeah.
And the idea of going out and talking to the merchants and talking to the restaurants before, so that we're not like imposing them, but really seeing what they want to do. So I think it's just the beginning of the conversation, but hopefully there'll be more information to, in gathering
and disseminate.
Yeah.
Right. And, I don't know if you guys want to go ahead and do that.
I already really.
Great, they're already on it.
So I'm already on it. But once again, the whole idea is this community engagement to bring people back to downtown and make it more inviting. So, and this dovetails nicely. We are waiting for the governor, and in all intents and purposes, it's already in the works that the ban, the allowing restaurants for outdoor seating is June 15th. That's already been decided. That happens to be a Monday. So if in fact we're looking ahead to being ambitious, we're looking ahead to that Friday, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19th, right, Alex? June 19th. Right in time for Father's Day. So June 19th, and then, the discussion will ensue, looking at the hours and what's going to work best, and your traffic rerouting, and then, obviously social distancing guidelines have to apply, and what all that's going to look like from a legislative and an enforcement perspective. So,
and there's one other thing that we should take note of, like this summer, there's going to be a lot more kids home, like, that aren't away for the summer. So it's going to be it's going to be great, but there's going to be a lot more youth energy around.
Right.
And it would require our merchants and our restaurants to move tables, and it would require, work from Alex and DPW and our traffic. There's a coordination issue also. But I gotta tell you, it kind of would be a nice thing to help our restaurants, our merchants, give them expanded seating, to give our residents the opportunity to sit outside in kind of an expanded space, and again and for whatever it's worth, our sidewalks are do expand, and it might be an interesting thing to try at least and see how it goes.
It sounds like a very good idea.
Yeah. Okay, I just want to ask, so you're talking about having no parking on the north side of Millburn Avenue from Dunkin' Donuts to Starbucks. And then if you're talking about expanding, taking away a lane on Essex Street coming west, and
Not taking away that there are parking spaces, Diane, in front of Live, in front there are parking spaces. So essentially you would push out to
Parklets.
yeah,
Like a parklet.
You'd have parklets or you'd have a, cones that
Okay,
would.
now I understand. So, but you're talking about then taking away parking on Essex Street as well.
Well, it was talking about 4 or 5 spaces. You have the lot across the street.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, Diane, that is exactly what we're
Yeah.
talking about.
Okay, so I just want to, and I think one thing I have to say is if you plan on closing Main Street, I think you're causing a public health problem because that is the only route to St. Barnabas coming from Springfield, Cranford, Union, parts of Millburn. And this is one of the problems. And I'm just so surprised you all were also upset that I didn't want to undo complete streets. And now you all want to like pull the parking out, whereas I really thought Maurice's idea was brilliant yesterday. So fine. The thing is, I cannot ever agree with closing Main Street because all you need is one CPR call going on who is forced to route down Millburn Avenue, left on Lackawanna, back on Essex, which now you have taken away the parking, you have parklets. I just want you to really seriously consider talking to the fire department.
We would have, Diane, we would definitely talk to traffic and make sure that they're on board with traffic police and first aid squad, everybody. It's not.
Tara, Tara, I know you love to interrupt me, but I've got to really say this is really an important consideration. Closing Main Street.
I hear you.
Not a smart idea for our ambulances.
Well,
and
we're
our-
gonna let our traffic department and our fire department make those decisions.
And again, it would be a limited, it would,
We don't know when there's going to be a CPR call. I was on the squad for 15 years.
and I understand that you've done this and this is part of your experience, but the question is coordination, whether there could be an alternative route. I totally hear you. And again, this is a trial run. This is something with COVID that other towns are doing, and it might be helpful to a business. It might be enjoyable by our residents.
It would be very enjoyable. I just wouldn't want to be the one having my family member having a CPR call being blockaded from Main Street. But I've put it out there. You guys take the ball and run with it. Take the bollards and move them.
Alex, do you want to add to this conversation?
Yeah, I mean, just briefly, I think there are a lot of good ideas being thrown around, and so certainly we want to make sure that we're cognizant of the timeliness of this. June 15th, the governor, will get guidance prior to June 15th, but certainly June 15th, it'll be allowed. There'll be people, and I think if the ability to get it rolled out on June 19th is going to be really important. So, it's kind of making sure that we decide on those larger sort of 30,000 foot decision, what times, what days, that type of thing. And then from an operational standpoint, we'll get it done. So.
Got it.
I think it's great.
One question, do we plan on making this available to all the merchants or just the merchants that are contiguous to wherever we're going to be closing the street?
That was a good
That's a
point
good
in terms of
question.
the restaurants.
Yeah.
That was brought up in conversation. I don't think it's not determined.
Okay, it's just something to think about. That's why I raised it.
Well, if they want to, like, would a restaurant want to serve, or would it be like a cafeteria style where just people would put out restaurants and people could take out food and bring it to Main Street? Like, I think there's a lot of unknowns.
Or does the town, this was another thing that was discussed, is, if you do a takeout, does the town have some picnic tables or some other general seating where people can take their prepared food and go to another area and sit outside. But then you're taking away parking, and that's a whole nother conversation. And do you think people will pick up from a restaurant? And, I personally think, everyone knows what happens at the Millburn Deli and the overflow in Taylor Park on the weekend. So I do think people would be amenable to taking food and walking a bit if the weather is conducive.
But also one of the other things that you can consider, sorry to interrupt, but is that, with sit-down restaurants, they may need, actually, it might not even be a desire of what they want, it may be what they need. And so is the ability to use other frontage at night, say after a store closes, to be able to say, all right, I'm gonna put out tables in front of the 2 clothing stores beside me that are closed, by the time I'm starting to serve dinner, something like that. So.
And if you did that, Alex, you might not have to take away the parking spots. I mean, this has been the complaint we hear all along, not enough parking. Then to go and take away an entire side of parking and even 4 on Essex Street. But, you guys will have to sort that out.
Well, again, this would only be for potentially Friday night, Saturday night.
It's not, the movie theater's closed, so some of the parking on Millburn Avenue at 6 o'clock on a Friday night would be dining centric, so they'll.
But you're right.
It has to be addressed.
All of these have to be worked out, and we have to make sure people can park, and we have to make sure our first aid squad can get through. I mean, those are all good points. This is just an idea that might make sense just because of what's going on. And again, it might be something great.
Great. Okay. Any other items of new business? May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second. All right.
We are adjourned.